Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Season 8 of the Clam World Cup. My name is K-Bot. I am joined by Zach. Zach, we both woke up in time. How you feeling this morning?
This is one show that I was not sure would have a second season for our purposes, but here we are regardless, and it is great to be back for our sophomore year, as it were. Don't get it twisted, though. This is definitely not just the second offering of this tournament. We are actually casting over Season 8 of the Clam World Cup with 13 fantastic teams vying it out for the title of the top team this month.
Yeah, it should be a real treat for those of you that don't really know what's going on, don't really know why IPL is live this early in the morning. We are watching a Japanese Clam Blitz tournament. We do not have any Western participation this time around, which is a little unfortunate. Don't get to see a few familiar names, but nonetheless, we are in for some fantastic gameplay here, and you can see some of the rosters on your screen right now. Of course, name that jumps out at you is Nagora, one of these players that's been around for a long time. We've been talking about them quite a bit, and we'll have to see what kind of a team he's put together for us this time around. They are not actually Clam World Cup staff, which is why they've got the role. Such in parentheses. Tic Tac was super proud of that addition to the English broadcast, so thank you, Tic Tac. But nonetheless, of course, as we go through the group stage today, we'll be featuring a handful of the teams that we expect to see around quite a bit in the rest of the tournament, and of course, this is going to be one of them, highlighted by Nagora.
Yeah, that's definitely a highlight of the Japanese scene, is that there is a less of an emphasis on team play and much more of an emphasis on getting sort of around there and playing with a bunch of different talented individuals. And, just in looking quickly through the Twitters, you see a lot of 2,800, 2,900 players that are in this tournament, and some familiar faces, as you said. Ryusei Boy also in this one, playing in Team A1 with Brainstorm. And then I believe Poyotan is another one playing in B2 for the Team Mystical. So some of the faces that we've seen, not just in the Clam World Cup, but also just in Japanese tournaments as well, coming together with a couple of other, different names and playing for basically a pickup. So really looking forward to seeing it. The way the tournament works, of course, is going to be that we'll have sort of a round robin style within the groups. Most of the groups have 3 teams. The top group A has 4, and the top 2 from each group will move on to make a top 8 single elimination bracket. And for the maps, going to be random to start out, and then counter picking all the way through from the rest of it. So best of 3 to start. Going to be really fast paced at the start again, but really, really fun to see as well.
Worthwhile to note on the maps that we are using the July Clam Blitz solo queue rotation. So only 8 maps are in play today. That includes for both randoms and counter picks. So of course, expect to see a handful of repeats. But as you mentioned, Zach, this is a rather small event. We do have 14 teams playing today. It'll be small and intimate. We'll get to know a handful of the players and a handful of the teams that are coming out for this one. There you see is the map pool on your screen, just in case those of you, like myself, don't actively suffer through Clam Blitz solo queue. Here it is for those of you that might not be aware. So certainly will be interesting. Actually, this feels like a pretty decent Clam Blitz pool. Not a ton of jarring maps here. Maybe the most jarring being Walleye. But this actually doesn't look terrible for us today.
We certainly skirted 2, maybe 3 maps out of the 8 last month. Skipper Pavilion, I know for sure, never seeing the light of day on stream at least. But as you mentioned, there's some really fun looking maps on here. We got Manta Maria, we got Humpback Pump Track, which is a great one to see. And of course, Gobi Arena is another pretty cool one. So I think a lot of these maps sort of lend themselves pretty well. They're sort of on relatively even keels, or they have pretty sensical, map layouts versus, some of the other maps that have a lot of blockades or aren't really set up well for Clam Blitz in terms of where the basket is located. So, of course, it's going to come down to how the teams play. Some players that we have today are very much, one tricks. I know there's a foil squeezer one trick in this tournament for sure, but otherwise, I think lots of these players are pretty adaptable, and we'll have to, as you can see on the screen, of course, it's coming up soon, that we have only 8 maps to choose from, and they don't get to counterpick, of course, until our second game. And it looks like our first map of this match will be on, as you mentioned, K-Bot, Walleye Warehouse.
Oh boy, random is going to strike for perhaps the most interesting one here to start. But to your point, when we're talking about these best of threes, when we're talking about a very small tournament, there's not going to be a lot of time to adapt for these players. They're going to have to make those adaptations, and they're going to have to make it quick if they want to survive in this kind of a more cutthroat tournament format. And so we'll have to see what kinds of adaptations these players are starting to pull out, even starting as early as, midway through game one, in terms of the way they're approaching the map with their current weapon composition, and then what kinds of changes they apply towards the future. But as you mentioned here, Clan Blitz Walleye Warehouse sometimes used to be called the final destination of Splatoon. Now it's not really played much because we've kind of taken it out of the map pool. Very flat in nature, and so we'll see things like these Stingrays come out. We'll see things like 10 Umbrellas could potentially thrive here. Don't really know if any of these players are proficient on that weapon, or if we'll really see that. But nonetheless, there are a lot of interesting things, specifically on Walleye Warehouse, that you can find that you're not going to find many other maps. And so this might not quite set the tale of what the series is going to show, but nonetheless, it'll be interesting to see what these players come up with.
All right, well, it looks like we are about to get into our first match of the day here on stream. It's going to be Clam Blitz on Walleye Warehouse between Bad Comp and Clam Cup staff, parentheses sus. We're going to be seeing Bad Comp in the green and Clam Cup staff sus in the blue. And for the weapon compositions here, we do see some pretty standard weapons and pretty standard fare. You see the Rapid Blaster Pro Deco, which has really picked up in popularity, being able to farm up that ink armor. And of course, there's the foil squeezer I was talking about, as well as the K52. And then you have a couple of other weapons that are not as commonly seen. You have the Flings-a Roller, the foil Flings-a Roller, which did have its day in the sun, but hasn't really been seen that much lately.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see why this team called themselves Bad Comp. They are certainly playing a little bit unconventionally this time around, but of course, we'll have to see exactly what happens as this game continues to play out. We see this Booyah Bomb get thrown up here as Clam Cup staff is going to start to push forward and take care of getting a few of these clans in the basket. Right now, they're doing an excellent job of maintaining the level of turf that is right underneath this barrier, allowing themselves to continue picking up. Now we see those bubbles pushing forward too, and this foil squeezer able to pick up yet another one here, practically spawn camping at this point around. And so now just 5 points left. We'll see if they can get forward here with just a few more clans. That will be the case at a quick 100-0 knockout early in the tournament for the Clam Cup staff squad.
What a speed run. And that was Hemogene on the foil squeezer there. That weapon can be so oppressive. Being able to farm up bubbles very, very quickly. That bubble blower able to provide that protection that, before in Clam Blitz, the baller would really occupy that role. And now, only needing one, of course, in that rather big stomp of a match there. But it's such a handy tool, and of course not even needed near the end of it. As you mentioned, this is a pretty straightforward map, not too many areas to hide, especially coming out of spawn. And so when the enemy team makes it all the way up to the platform just below where your base is held, where your respawn point is, it really becomes difficult to especially with some of the weapons that they're running, even outrange the foil squeezer. And with its devastating ability to, be relatively accurate at range, that is a difficult weapon to get around. We'll have to see what the team of Bad Comp can do as we move next to New Albacore Hotel.
And Albacore are going to be one of those maps where it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get locked out on, right? Walleye Warehouse, typically known for, especially on something like Clam Blitz, you're able to push forward. There's a very tight corridor coming away from the spawn that is somewhere where just someone can walk up there with with bubbles in the ramp, right? So New Albacore Hotel is going to be significantly more difficult to do that. There are a lot more ways to get back down, drop on top of this barrier. But by the same token, if you have the right tools at your disposal in order to take a look at, trying to put pressure on your opponents as they're dropping from these different angles, such as that Rapid Blaster, you might still run into some issues. So we'll have to see exactly what they decide to pull out. Maybe they're going to stick tried and true to this weapon composition, though, which could be even more interesting. Of course, these players are all feeling pretty comfortable on that today. But nonetheless, we're just going to have to wait and see kind of what happens here.
Yeah, any team with Nigora, not a team to be trifled with, and you add now Himajin into the mix, and that is going to be especially deadly. You know, this is a map that tailors itself quite well to weapons like the Rapid Blaster Pro Deco, and even the 52s, where they have just enough range to get across those grates and not need to really fuel up or ink up the way other weapons with shorter ranges might, or the way that they would need to be closer up and in your face. So here we go. We're going to be seeing a composition of a double K52, I believe, coming out on the side of the winning team here, Clam Cup Staff Sus, and on the opposite side of things, the Kensa Roller, and they're also sticking with those Glugadulies, which will give them sizable range, and they should still be able to roll even across those grates, as we see an early pickup here from Himajin.
Early pickup here, which will open the window of possibility for a push. 3-down situation. The Sync Rush is the last one up. Is going to be forced to try to pop this baller and get away. But you see the clan economy quickly swinging in favor of Clam Cup Staff, and now they're going to start to push into this barrier. They don't have a lot of presence here so far, but I imagine that they're going to probably try to get this over time with 8 clams coming in from someone else. Likely going to try to look for this jump in a moment as this Bua Bomb gets thrown out and trying to push these members back even still, and they're just continuing to tick down this timer. And now finally it looks like we're going to start to see a little bit more green ink come forward. They have to be careful. Still 5 points away, but it looks like they've cleared things out. Foil Squeezer going to try to push on 4. Not going to get this time around, and that'll finally be the wipe needed. But a push down to 5 here to start out for Clam Cup Staff.
Yeah, very, very strong. IU there with the K52, the last surviving member. We're also going to be seeing an Inkjet come out, just barely trying to get them down, but they're not going to be able to take the KO on Kudo there. Kudo pushing forward and trying to avoid both a baller and bubbles. Oh my gosh, that is too many specials to try and avoid with very little ink coverage to their name. And it's going to be a pretty decently sized recovery, at least in terms of the middle of the map here from Bad Comp, as we see a nice splat there by the Kensa Roller. So they've got a 2-down situation. Of course, Clam Cup Staff with a big lead, but working with a sizable penalty and 26 clams to the name of Bad Comp. They're playing it very safe. They have plenty of time left on the board. And of course, this is another weapon that they have to deal with there. That full point splatling, but that's going to be a nice KO. That should give them an opening, but they've also lost 2 of their members. The specials now coming out. We have the Bubble Blower on the side of Bad Comp. And of course, the Booyah Bomb there on the opposite side of things for Clam Cup Staff. It's not going to work out. Even a member of Clam Cup falling in the water. It's chaos all around as we have a neutral game war.
Very neutral there. One of the things about this composition is that it's going to be difficult for them to actually get a lot of quick momentum moving forward because they don't have a lot of things that can just start opening up areas. One of the things could potentially be this Ink Rush, or even you're starting to look towards these Glugadulies. But one of the things this composition does have is a little bit more staying power. If they can find their way in, they might be able to stick around for a long time. And so I might not be too concerned if we are able to see them build up another like 20 clams to their name or 3 power clams, something of that nature. But of course, they have to find another way to do that here, and perhaps this 3-down situation could be the way to do that. Now make that the complete wipe. They'll be roaming around the map, collecting these clams, and trying to find a way in.
Yeah, we have 2 down, as you mentioned, for Clam Cup Staff, and there is a decent bit of ink coverage. You can see the Rapid Blaster trying to make a push across the grates, but Himajin there yet again with that Foil Squeezer going to be taking them down. They have the bubbles to their name. It's a 3v3 as they've gotten back up to 20. They had lost all but about 1 of their clams, but now we see the Kensa Roller attempting to again reclaim that control in mid. They don't have as much time quite as they did before. The ballpoint splatling the bow really holding things down. Another great weapon to have on a map with quite a lot of grating there. And something that, of course, if you're coming up against flash balls, should be good to melt it, but that's not going to be enough. The Rapid Blaster Pro Deco trying to find the kills on this high ground. That's another really smart way to get people off the high ground, provide that chip damage. And also, as you can see here, trying to pop some of the bubbles for their team. They're going to have to swim away to get around the Booyah Bomb, of course, which they have 2 to contend with. But when you have somebody like IU getting right up in your face, that's going to be very difficult for your weapons range to play around. And just like that, they were back down to just 8, now 12 power clams with about a minute to go.
Things are looking rough here for this bad composition, in air quotes, looking to try to come back in this game. But again, without that staying power, with continuing to go down in these more neutral situations. They're just not able to fully come forward. Now, this rapid left, they're trying to move on forward, but it's just not going to happen this time around, is that Power Clam is going to fall into the basket here for Clam Cup staff. They're looking to try to add a few more to their name here as well, wear down this penalty, and they're starting to actually come on forward here. Here comes the ball point on this side with a few of these clams at the ready, but the clam spawn happens right here in front of the barrier, able to find here just a few more clams into the basket, and that is going to be a real quick 2-0 for this Clam Cup staff team.
Just like the map itself, it's more extended, but the result itself was the same in the end. We had a great neutral game scene there, as we see, again, Himajin and I believe that to be Kurokuro, who were topping the leaderboard with 10K each. So very strong showing there from Clam Cup. Also not trying to, force a quick ending there with that second game. They showed that they can definitely do it, and they had a great early push in this one as well. But this one, of course, in nature was likely going to be a little bit tougher for them, considering that it was a counterpicked map by Bad Comp. But for Clam Cup staff, not a problem there. And it's showing that they're playing this quite smart in terms of knowing which specials to play. Booyah Bomb is something that, you can throw just about to any part of the map. You're pretty safe in the air while you're charging it up, and you also attract a lot of attention. So if somebody is casting, say, another special like Bubble Blower, or if they're trying to fly around with the Inkjet, that's something that's great to have because you can just chuck it right near them, and that's something that is very oppressive to deal with. So, of course, the Gloogadoolies were what we're trying to make use of that Inkjet. I didn't see it, accomplishing too much at the end of the day, and as a result of that, Clam Cup staff, Sus, going to be taking a quick 2-0 there, as you mentioned.
To that point, I'm interested to know if each of those players, when they're playing double counts of 52, like we were saying in the last one, if each of those players have different uses for their Booyah Bombs in mind, right? Because that could be another thing where in a, kind of versatile special weapon, you can throw that Booyah Bomb anywhere you want. But there could be a few different reasons why you're putting that out. Maybe you're trying to lock out the opposing team. Maybe you're trying to create space for yourself. Maybe you could be doing a handful of different things, of course, all with the concept of trying to move your enemy around, or maybe getting a little bit more ink on the ground, or even just using it to protect yourself, like we've seen a lot of Kensa 52 players opt for, whereas it's kind of like that invincibility special, right? You're perhaps a little bit vulnerable in the air, but for a while, you're kind of able to change things around just slightly, maybe buy some time for a teammate to come on by. So that might be interesting. As we continue to watch this team, I imagine they might make playoffs today, but as we continue to watch them, we'll have to see if we can start calling those kinds of things out. And for this, Bad Comp, we'll have to see if they can pick up a few more wins today. Of course, I believe it's going to be the top 2 out of each group that are going to move on to the bracket stage. So they do have another opportunity to try to come on back in here and try to make this composition find a way to work, but it doesn't look like it's working out for them right now, at least against, these very strong players.
Yeah, certainly going to be easier considering they're one of the 3 groups out of 4 that only have 3 teams in them. And as you said, 2 teams total from each group making the bracket stage. Going to be hardest, of course, for Group A, which does contain 4 teams. So 2 of them are not going to make it. And of course, with it being best of 3 and then getting into the bracket stage single elimination, there is little to no room for error. Every single game counts. So Clam Cup staff looking very strong here in terms of their chances to make it. Bad Comp going to be taking on Takenyan later on off stream, I believe, to see if they can make it to that next stage. And we're going to have round 2 coming up next. I believe that match will be No Variation versus Pig. That coming out of Group B. Again, that being another group with 3 teams. So going to be very interesting to see how that one plays out and how their team compositions and styles differ from what we just saw in Group D.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things that is, I think, most interesting about, getting up this early to watch this event that's happening in the evening over there in Japan, is to watch different styles that some of these teams are trying to employ, right? As we mentioned, a lot of these squads are probably going to end up being pickups, but even still, they are going to be at least a little bit deliberate in terms of what kinds of weapons they're pulling out, why are they pulling out, and once they have that, that team together, what are the kinds of roles that these players are actually taking in game? How many of them are trying to run around looking for extra clams? How many of them are trying to actually actively open up a path into that barrier? What are their focuses as we take a look? And so that's one of the things that I think is going to be most interesting to continue looking for here as we carry forward in the day, and one of perhaps the, learning lessons that everyone can try to employ as we move forward to whether that be your solo queue games or, even looking forward to more tournament play.
Yeah, to your point about weapon compositions, we saw things like the ballpoint Splatling Nouveau come out on new Albacore, which is, in theory, quite a strong weapon. It has Squid Beacon for a map that is quite large in terms of, it's not too easy to get around. There's a lot of unequal surfaces in terms of the grades. There's a lot of, tricky spots, too, that you can place it. You can place it up behind the box on the high ground if you have a weapon that's trying to make it to, that spot, if they're trying to have an overlook on the map, as it were, or you can place it just ahead of or just behind one of those grates to be able to either use it sort of as bait for the enemy team to try and, focus their attention just for a second or two on that. I know a lot of squids these days tend to run Object Shredder on their shoes to help with that sort of thing, mainly for, I think, splash walls. But of course, if you can do it with Squid Beacons too, that's another big advantage. And then Inkstorm as well. We saw a ton of play in the midsection during that second game, which again is a throw or a shout out to Bad Comp in terms of, sort of knowing where their strengths lie and being able to sort of force a strong neutral game. But they were just never able to find the advantage. And I would credit that in part to sort of the oppressive long-range nature of the ballpoint Splatwing Nouveau. They were able to get close to taking it out sometimes with, each team running a Rapid Blaster Pro Deco, so you have a bit of range there. But, having a weapon like that in your back pocket helps your frontliners and your utility, your midline even feel quite content in performing their own jobs.
So now we'll be getting ourselves set up here for the second round of the day. We are in groups. This is in Group B. It'll be between No Variation and Pig. No Variation, this is, as you mentioned earlier, Zach, one of the groups of 3 teams. So Pig did have a bye in round 1, and as No Variation was playing against Mystical. Mystical was the team that actually won this set, so now No Variation looking for the win here. But they're going up against Rusu's team, which is not a player you want to see on the opposite side of the map when you say, we need a win in this round. Rusu is a monster in a lot of ways.
Yeah, this is going to be a very, very difficult one. This is a 3,000 plus player, which of course, in and of itself, regardless of what weapon they're playing, is very intimidating. Quite popular as well. I believe they have over 25K followers on Twitter, so they are, quite somebody that can draw attention and draw a crowd. So that is going to be a tough wall to climb. We also have Todo, Owami, and Naruta on the side of Pig. And when you're staring sort of potential elimination in the face the way that No Variation is, I think it's better in those cases to just put the names that you're coming up against out of your mind and sort of focus on, just what weapons are they going to be bringing? What weapon should we count, or what map should we counterpick to if we have to in game number 2? And best of 3, you can make some very interesting things happen in best of 3. The opposite, of course, is true, where it can be just an absolute stomp and you can have no time to get going. But a lot of very nice upsets have happened in best of 3 situations. So for No Variation, definitely something that they're hoping to happen here as we get set up. Of course, throwing back to the 8 maps that we could potentially start with, we will be starting, of course, from a random one. We've seen 2 thus far. We have not seen some favorites like the Reef or Manta or Gobi Arena. There's also places to go like Moray and Wahoo World, and Humpback Pump Track rounding out the list. Where would you want to go, K-Bot, if you had the choice out of these 8 maps?
I want to see Moray Towers. I'll say it. I want a little bit of chaos this morning. Moray Towers is a map that we don't get to see, at all, right? And so if we were able to watch it here, I think Clamlet's probably accepted as maybe the best mode on Moray for what it's worth, right? With those baskets rather close together. And so, I think it could be interesting. Let's see how these teams elect to play this map, especially one that we don't get to see very often. So that's my vote. How about you, Zach? Where do you want to go?
It's a good point, and I think Moray is viewed quite differently in Japan than it is in the West. I think there's a reason it was voted so highly at the end of Splatoon 1 to what could have potentially made it into Splatoon 2. But for me, I always enjoy seeing Humpback Pump Track. I love the way that the layout is. I think it's very different from many other maps. You have that moat surrounding that raised middle platform, and a huge wall that can allow any sort of mid to long range weapon, from even a Rapid Blaster Pro Deco if you really want to the longer range weapons like your Splatlings and your Chargers, to succeed there. So definitely one that I think can cater to a lot of play styles. I think if I were to choose maybe a more chaotic option, I would love to see how they tackle Wahoo. That's something that I don't get to see too terribly often, and is a map that, also has a very well-defined underbelly, as it were, but much more difficult to get around, as there are sizable chunks of that map that are A, very out of reach from your spawn, and B, plain uninkable. So lots of, sharking opportunities, I think, in both maps, but I think for me, Humpback Pump Trap's a little bit more fun to watch in especially Clan Blitz.
And one of the things about Humpback is just how fast you can start to get, responses out of the teams, right? With those baskets, I mean, there is not a lot of distance on that map. It's very round in nature, right? And not very long. And so with those baskets being rather close together, you can get teams building up clams and very quickly translating that into an attempted push. And then it's just a matter of seeing the opposing team trying to scramble back underneath their own basket to try to prevent any clams from coming in to fire here. So, certainly. But of course, only time will tell. We're still waiting on getting just a few more players into the lobby here before we get this one underway. And of course, with this first one as a random, we're letting the game decide. We don't get to know until the players know. And so it looks like we'll be able to have that here in just a moment. Let's see. Drum roll, please. All right. There it is. And hey, Zach, we got one of your picks. We're going to Waffle.
Oh, man. All right. Well, at least the nice part is, no variation going to have their name or their tag on their name, so it's going to be a lot easier to follow there. Wahoo World, going to be a fun one to watch. I think this is going to have a great chance to be an even playing field. I'm not sure that either team would have counterpicked to this map, so this will be a great way to start us out in terms of seeing what these teams' strengths are. So, especially compared to some of the other maps that may have to play it a little bit differently. It is a large map, but it's rather open. It's not like Moray in that you have a lot of juxtaposition of range, or you have a lot of different ways to sort of scale and climb. You have a couple of boxes in the middle of the map that get you up to that center circle there, and otherwise you kind of have to take the long way around. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something like a Ballpoint Splatwing Niveau come back, something with beacons where your team can get back into the fight quicker. There are a couple places and cushions or pillows, as it were, where you can place those beacons behind. And of course, we have some standard favorites like the K52, which we've already seen plenty of. And we'll have to see if they decide to go with another armor farming weapon, something like the NZAP, which is so popular in the West, or even the Splattershot Junior. But maybe the range of the Rapid Blaster Pro Deco is going to be tantalizing enough for one or both teams to bring it. I also wouldn't be too shocked to see an Inkjet. This is a pretty fun Inkjet map because that raised platform isn't too high that an Inkjet cannot scale it.
We'll have to see here what these teams are coming. Okay, wait a minute.
No shot. We do all this talk about weapon comps, and we see this?
No variation, baby. Pull out the quad vanilla Luna. Perfect. You cannot beat peak Splatoon gameplay right here.
There is no shot. Okay, so Splat Bomb and Baller, Splat Bomb and Baller, Splat Bomb and Baller, and you guessed it, Splat Bomb and Baller. Well, I would say not even a terrible map for something like this. The strategy there, you can just start poking on the circle. They are already 2 down, but they have a Baller at their disposal, and they're coming up on another one. So even though there's a Power Clam already on the side of Pig, this is actually not the worst situation so far. We have the first break on there from Pig. They have a few clams still at the ready, but They're trying their best to, with their couple of ballers, at least save them for the right opportunity, but it looks like they're not even able to push in, unfortunately.
And this is just one of the things with, perhaps the instructive point of paint control and turf control, right? Just how important that is in this game. Trying to take some lesson out of this game here is that you'll notice these Luna Blasters don't have a lot of ability to move around the map, and a lot of green ink is just in the area. You'll notice they're stalling for time, trying to keep this basket open for a little while longer. Looks like we are going to see a pick in that barrier finally go back up here with just not any other follow-up coming in from Rusu's squad, but nonetheless here, we'll have to see if there's any counterplay potential as a baller comes out, but there's no power claims at the ready here. But already 2 of these Lunas going down.
That was Takahiro with the jump kill. That's something that, of course, the Luna Blaster does excel in, is being right in their face when they jump back to wherever their teammate was. So a nice little start there. They aren't going to be 2 down, and you can see just how much green is on the map here. It looks like they've barely made an indent on the opposite side of things. And when you're going up against something like a 96 gal, which we haven't even talked about yet, or a foil squeezer, which is a very strong choice, as well as the Inzap, which we were talking about earlier, that's something that can be very difficult to contend with. 28 clams total on the side of Pig. They have a 38 penalty to contend with, which looks like chump change when compared to the amount of clams that they are holding on to at the moment. But we're going to see an early pick here. It's going to be the Bamboo going down. Now a 3v3 situation as we see Menkun trying to push forward, or push back, I should say, to maintain what little map control they have. Menkun, the last survivors, they try and duck and dive their way out of the bubbles, but it's not going to fare. That's effectively a full wipe, and that may be the end of this one. Just 1 clam left, and that will end it.
And that'll be that. But of course, folks, no variation. Expect to see that happening again. It turns out that if you are able to read Japanese, perhaps you should have seen that one coming. Tic Tac's informing us that no variation nickname is Nova, which is the name for the Luna Blaster in Japanese. So there you go. There's the connection there. So probably we'll end up seeing that again, or we do a little bit of trolling, maybe, perhaps, when you are in Japan this evening. What else? What else I have for us? Guess they're counterpicking to the reef. Is there any thought behind this, Zach, you think?
Well, first off, I think no variation works just fine as a team name, because clearly they have no variation in their team comp. It's what you see is what you get, and what you get is Luna Blaster, period, end of sentence. Looking at the maps that they have available to them, this is maybe about as good as they could do. You could make a case, I think, for something like, I don't know, Gobi Arena, Humpback Pump Track, where there's some walls and lower surfaces you can hide behind or shark on, but the reef, I think, is about as good as you're going to get, because the middle areas, you don't have a huge space to maneuver around in. It's sizable for sure, and you have platforms behind each, behind a bridge that are pretty decently sized as well. But I think when you talk about, okay, you're coming back from spawn, and how close are you to the basket? How well are you able to use the very short range of the Luna Blaster? This is not the worst. I think they're making the most of what maps they have available to them, what they could counterpick to.
Well, so I asked you the wrong thing because Tic Tac lied to us. Okay. It is apparently just random for groups. It's not actually counterpicks.
Oh, okay.
They just pulled the reef here.
All that
blame
conjecture.
Tic Tac, everybody go blame Tic Tac. Tic Tac does a little bit of trolling here this morning as well. But we're heading into things here. We'll have to see what exactly comes to this. Actually, interesting to see Rusu opting for the custom dually sculptures here. Not a weapon we get played very recently, but a weapon that was certainly popular at one time.
I will say, that was effectively a full wipe onto Pig by No Variation, so they're going to have a nice start here. Not as many claims as they would like, but just enough for a power claim, and they're going to have a pop on the basket there. The barrier's going to go down. They're going to lose the team member that was able to do it. Plasma trying to maneuver back, maintain some map control as they lose 2 total members, and they've lost every single clam, but that's going to be a great opening for No Variation. They were able to sort of make it through the bridge as they wanted to. They're using the alleyway as well. That's Menkun over there trying to hang on to those 3 clams. Unfortunately, they are going to get outranged there by Sugar Hate. We see Plasma in the middle as well, popping a baller, trying to get away before that barricade breaks, and they are not going to be able to do so. They're also having to use, as you can see there, even their Splat Bomb to do a little bit of map control as well, because their main weapon just won't cut it in a lot of situations.
Their main weapon won't cut it, and no one else's main weapon on their team is going to cut it alone. So using all of the tools at your disposal will get just enough map control to try to find something forward here. And that looks like they're having a decent chance at doing this. Takahiro here with the power clam looking to try to move forward is going to get taken out, but nonetheless, trying to see what can come of this. But all the meanwhile, actually, barrier getting open for Pig is they're going to be able to find a way in on this far side with nobody looking down there at Rusu, trying to stall out that area. Might be opting for one of these other teammates to start approaching here, and looks like a few more clams are going to find their way into the basket. But it does look like now at this point, all these players have gone down. They're just going to be able to take the lead here and get a little bit further ahead.
And that's the other side of this coin, right? They say defense is the best offense, and I think for defensive purposes, the Luna Blaster is not a terrible weapon in terms of they have to get close enough to be able to throw that clam. The Luna Blaster is a hard-hitting weapon when you get into its range, and you basically have to play in its range in order to be effective. Now we see 23 clams, super jumps, and the double baller coming out to play protect the president as they try and protect their power clam. They are able to break the barrier after temporarily losing that clam. They are going to lose 2 members, and even though they have the clams, can they get the lead? And they do. They lose 3 members. That was almost a full wipe, but they were able to break that barricade with the double baller salute. And just with over 2 minutes left to go, we see No Variation yet again claiming the lead. It does look a little dangerous, though, as Pig is going to have that power clam as well as a 17 total. But that was a very, very strong push, arguably the strongest we've seen so far.
So many circles here with the ballers, the Luna Blaster shots, and the footballs, but nonetheless, it's going to be Pig pushing their way back into the basket, able to find this lead. They're looking to try to find just a few more clams here to try to extend their lead, but it looks like it's not going to happen this time around. Now we'll have to see. It looks like there's probably just about enough time for No Variation to be able to build up another push into their basket here. We'll have to see if they're able to do that, but again, look at just how much green ink is on the map. They're going to have to pull some shenanigans with these ballers again, or Pig is just going to continue to throw in these power clams over time. As you see one going in, now Rusu looking for the approach here, and there are plenty of players with clams in the area. One Luna Blaster going down, trying to jump on top of some of these members, and there it is. Plenty of clams in the hands of Pig as they take game 2 here, despite all of the Luna Blaster shenanigans.
It was a wonderful showing, but it just goes to show how important map control is. They were 3 down at the end of that, and despite everything, the Lunas were basically still in their spawn, or at least behind their own bridge area, trying to regain some semblance of map control, and it was just too little too late, as Pig was able to take what was either the pity clam or the power clam that they built up along the way, and use the sort of easy swimming lanes there that were still existing on No Variation side of the map to swim right in, break that barrier, and end the match. So much better showing, I will say, from No Variation. That was a ton of fun to watch, but that will be Pig taking it 2-0 on what is not a counter pick. It will be just random throughout the remainder of the group stage. As you know, we saw, I think, a very, very fun set there that we may not get to duplicate the rest of this tournament.
Not going to get to duplicate that the rest of this tournament, and probably not going to duplicate that in many other tournaments, I will say. Very unique, I think, to the Clam World Cup with some Japanese folks having a little bit of fun tonight. They probably realize that they're just They don't have much of a chance maybe in that match. Enjoy themselves a little bit, the Quad Luna, which is, you know, an interesting exercise. All right, what happens when we pick Quad Luna? What are kinds of the shortcomings there? What kinds of things do we have at our advantage, perhaps? With, you know, what kinds of chaos can we create with two ballers running around underneath the enemy barrier, right? So much interesting stuff there. And hey, Splatoon 3 is right around the corner. Maybe that's the new meta. Who knows? Got to try new stuff out.
Boy, if that's the new meta, I don't know if people would laugh or cry. I genuinely don't. You know, they have to work out the kinks. We you know, KOF have not had a global test fire yet. KOF, that's the last I'll say on that. But definitely, you know, the start of the game, the way the weapons shake out ends up being usually drastically different than, you know, whatever present point you're at in that game. So several years down the line, there's a lot of metas within that. We may see a Luna Blaster or short range blaster meta. You never know. So especially when we get to see the weapon variations and Sheldon's picks, who I believe is confirmed to be coming back. I don't know about his picks, but the dude himself is coming back. So definitely something that can be looked out for. Next up, as you can see on your screen here, that is going to be from Group A. That is the group with 4 teams. Brainstorm versus Hello from Strangers. And this is going to be the match that features on Brainstorm Ryusei Boy. That is another familiar name here. A very, very difficult player to go up against.
Yeah, and, you know, teaming up here with Melon as well. I think another one of those, you know, high-level XP players in the Japanese scene here. They're going to be looking to solidify their spot in playoffs here for their final match of the group. So yeah, definitely going to be an interesting one to watch out for. Yeah, tell you all what, folks, we are going to take a moment to collect ourselves after watching 4 Luna Blasters in that last match. So we're going to step away for a very brief break. I do believe we're getting into lobby here very shortly for our final game in group. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in a moment. Welcome back to Season 8 of the Clam World Cup. And for those of you just joining us, this is a Japanese Clam Blitz tournament that we decided to wake up early and cast this morning, Zach. I don't know. I mean, we're getting some kind of fun matches. We just got to watch Quad Luna Blaster in the last one. And it almost worked versus high-level players in Japan. So I don't know what to expect out of this one, but it'll sure be interesting.
I was going to say, yeah, the Luna Blaster quad comp, I think, was reason enough to get up this early in the morning. And Brainstorm might be providing a couple of other reasons as well, with Ryusei Boy and Melon on the same team, joined by Roto and Honoka. On the opposite side of things, we have Hello from Strangers. As you can see there, Pochi, Gorilla Pikmin Kazu, Tanachu, and Flygon Master Shin. If the Shin is short for shiny, I will, of course, be very happy. No particular reason why. But it looks like we're going to be starting things off on what is now a familiar map in the Reef. Although, unfortunately, we don't have the benefit, or I don't know if it's a benefit, of Quad Luna. But I will say this will likely be shooter heavy. In doing a tiny bit of research on folks like Ryusei Boy, Melon, and other folks on the side of Hello from Strangers, like Pochi, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of shooters, K52s and the like, coming out here as we are just about to get started.
So what you're telling me is we're going to get a little bit closer to quote-unquote normal in this match. These players are going to load into things here. No Luna Blaster shenanigans this time around, although we do see Kent's Machine on one side of the map and a Tri-Slosher on the other here. Weapons that we don't see very often, not just 8 shooters. Zach.
Honoka, a player after my own heart, playing the Tri-Slosher there. A lovely weapon in my regard, but, a pretty strong armor farming weapon. And on the opposite side of things, we're going to get our Splattershot Jr. a first look there. So they're going to be running the armor through that weapon. And the Kensa Machine, that is quite a fun weapon. It can be a difficult weapon to pull off because it does have Splashdown as its special, which is somewhat of a fragile special. It cannot be played like a panic button. We are seeing a pretty huge start here on the side of Brainstorm, as they have already gotten down to 38. That double armor composition already doing wonders for them, as the 10 missiles are being bopped here from Hello Strangers just to try and get something back. It's a 2v2 at this point, and there's plenty of clams remaining for Brainstorm. They had 9 at the ready, and that's going to be arguably one of the fastest maps we've seen to date. Just look at how little of the map was touched, especially on the Brainstorm side.
Yeah, I mean, they are just blitzing in, picking up those clams as soon as possible, sniffing out their opponents, and just trying to take care of business. Melon opening things up there for that leaderboard with 6 KA in like the span of 45 seconds. Hello? Absolutely going off here, and they have certainly come to try to take this tournament, and we are very quickly going to be loading into the next map, which is Mako Mart this time around, something where that Tri-Slosher is going to thrive even more.
The dangers of playing best of 3. You might only get to play a minute and a half of Splatoon if it's 2 games, and your games are only 45 seconds long. So hopefully that's not the case here. Hopefully we see some pushback on the side of Hello from Strangers. Of course, I like the theory of their composition. Something like the Splattershot Jr., you have to play very carefully because it just gets flat outranged. There are lots and lots of walls on this map in particular to shark on and hide behind, but it is quite a lengthy map. It does take quite the trek to get to the opposite side of things. So something like the NZAP or even going to the Rapid Blaster Pro Deco might benefit them there if what they're looking for is range. On the opposite side of things, just crutch on Melon if you need to. Your team is stacked otherwise, but Melon, of course, putting on an absolute show with that K52, showing why it's arguably the strongest or one of the strongest weapons in the meta currently, regardless of the mode you're playing on.
And Melon is one of these players that is incredibly proficient on that weapon, right? And using all of the avenues where this Kensa 52 has to stay alive. Splash wall, Booyah Bomb up in the air. So much versatility and able to paint for itself in a lot of different ways. It's able to be independent of what else is going on the map. And so we'll see what comes of this for the future. It looks like weapon composition sticking to be rather similar here for both of these squads. Actually, a junior coming out of Hello from Strangers this time around, looking to try to match these armors that are getting pumped out by the Tri-Slosher of this Brainstorm squad.
Yeah, I think one of the first times we're seeing a K-shot in this tournament, which is definitely a popular weapon in the West, but not something that we've seen a ton of as we see it get a kill there onto Pody. That's going to force a 3-down situation, actually, as we go back over to Melon, who doesn't even need the Booyah Bomb. The main weapon's strong enough. Melon, one of the reasons why you would want to run Object Shredder on your shoes, and we are seeing that barrier get shredded as well as the clams in general. The Dually Squelchers there using that mobility to get out of the way of the blockade of burst bombs being hailed there by, I believe, the K-shot. That defense is going to allow them to get that barricade back up, and they have the 10 missiles at their disposal, which they'll use now. But you can see just how backed up Hello from Strangers is, essentially having to play much of this time so far behind their own barrier.
And now they're starting to try to move on a little bit forward. With one pick, they try to move forward, but they are met with 10 missiles on the other side of the map, and that is the complete wipe trying to push forward into this Brainstorm squad. You see Melon already forward, looking to continue to apply this pressure, protect this barrier from anyone else coming in, but didn't cover this flank from the side as it's against the machine is able to pick up one, preventing one of these sources of clams from coming in the basket. But there are still plenty of embers from Brainstorm around this barrier, throwing in these clams, and they're just going to get the knockout in 2 pushes again here. Once again, showing just how much they came to play.
It wasn't 45 seconds, but it was darn close. You could see at the end there the K machine trying to do their best to find the remaining members with that fizzy bomb and with their shots, but the teammates of Brainstorm were like ants swarming around the broken barrier there, trying to dump the rest of their clams into the basket, which is a feat that they succeeded in quite quickly. So Brainstorm seeded at A1. I don't think the groups are seeded necessarily, but they are, of course, looking like a top seed as they will likely make it into the bracket stage of this competition. A very quick, very strong showing there by a team that needs every win that they can get, being in the only group with 4 teams.
And indeed, that will be the 3-0 match victories for Brainstorm. So, of course, they will be moving forward, actually only dropping a single game to the 2nd seed in the pool. So they'll be moving forward into the bracket here. And we'll have to see what else is going to move on for the rest of these teams. Of course, things are going to be real interesting. We just saw a bunch of knockouts, of course, but I think all of the teams we saw winning will be making an appearance in playoffs. We were talking, obviously this squad was playing exceptionally well, but they are soon going to have to go up against some of these other players we've been talking about so far today, such as they're going to have to go up against Nagora. They're going to have to go up against Rusu's squad. They're going to have to go up against these other players that obviously they are incredibly familiar with. And so we'll have to see what happens when push comes to shove and these players are really starting to go up against players their own skill level.
Yeah, definitely going to be a strong one. I think our next match will potentially be Team Luck, which is a team that we have not seen play yet. That's going to be a team coming out of the C group, C1. And they would be going up against Mystical, which was sandwiched between the other teams that we saw out of Group B, No Variation, and Pig. If it could actually be Pig coming into our bracket stage match here. So that would be another great chance to see Rusu, as you talked about K-Bot. So very interesting. I think those 2 teams are playing right now. And the winner will be making it on to the bracket stage. So hard to bet against Rusu, I will say that. I have not seen Mystical play, but that is going to be a difficult one to beat. But Poyotan and some of the other members of Mystical, definitely not members of the Japanese community to be scoffed at in terms of their skill level.
Certainly. So while that match happens off stream and as we prepare for our bracket stage today, we're going to step away. You've been watching Season 8 of the Clam World Cup Japanese Clam Blitz Tournament, and we are about to get into some pretty high-level action. So try to call your friends, try to get them to wake up maybe, or, maybe not. They might yell at you, seeing as how it's 8 o'clock where I am right now and 9 o'clock on the East Coast. So if you're North America, maybe not, but certainly European enjoyers do come on by, stick around, and keep in touch with the rest of the show. We'll be back in just a little bit with the bracket stage. welcome back to Season 8 of the Clam World Cup Japanese Clam Blitz Tournament. That's right, folks. That's why we're here at 9 in the morning on the East Coast. My name is Kayvon. I am joined by Shiny, Hunter, Zach, and we've gotten to see some pretty one-sided matches, but of course things are starting to heat up here as we get into our bracket stage now, Zach.
I feel like K-Bot would make a good morning radio show host with K-Bot in the morning. But going back to the match here, we're going to see Pig, which is a team that we've already seen so far, thankfully. They've got Rusu. We've spoken about them. Fantastic player, very difficult player to go up against. And we're going to see, on the opposite side of things, Team Luck. And Team Luck is going to be the second seed coming out of the C group. With the first seed, I believe, being Antarctica. This wasn't a group that we really got to spectate that much, so I am very interested to see how well they do. Their players, of course, you can see being Isohachi, Otoni Fire, Shiro, and Usada Riworu. So very interesting to get another opportunity to spectate Pig. See if that genius from the group stage carries over into our bracket stage here. And the format will be best of 3. And we're going to incorporate counter picking starting in game 2, which we thought was the case originally. Now it's for real. This time for real is real.
You say, replicate the brilliance, but they were going up against Quad Luna. So I don't know if that's like brilliance that they can replicate. No, I mean, they played well, of course, but yeah, I mean, come on, right? I don't really know. All right. You see the bracket now on your screen. Of course, we were seeing Brainstorm in that last set there at the top of the bracket. They'll play the winner of this match, which would be an interesting one to catch on the Japanese stream. And then, of course, down here, you might notice one of the teams that we haven't gotten to hear from yet today is that C1 team, which is... Wait, that's the team we're watching right now. Is it?
No, C1 is Antarctica.
Am I trolling? C1 is Antarctica. I am getting confused. It's early, folks. Wait, why is it... Okay, well, my list is wrong then, according to, Wait, no, it's not wrong, because that's... I am trolling. Okay, anyway, the thing I wanted to talk about with Antarctica was the fact that you might recognize Onex. Onex is another player that's been playing in a handful of Western tournaments as of late. I believe they were on Sushi in Super Jump. So that was that third Japanese team that we didn't really get to see much of on the main broadcast, but also has played in a handful of SOS events here or there. So if you're an IPL viewer, you might be familiar with that name as well. They're playing in this tournament as well. And so perhaps we'll get to see them next round, to see what comes of that. But should be interesting to see what comes to the rest of this. But of course, we are going to go ahead and get set for our match here as the teams are now getting settled into their random map. And we will be heading to Humpback Hump Track for our first map.
This is a map I wanted to see. This is a very fun map, in my opinion, to view, to spectate. So definitely looking forward to seeing how they attack it, because we haven't gotten to see it on stream yet. And it was not available last month, to my recollection. So this is definitely one that has lots of opportunities for sharking, lots of opportunities for longer range weapons. It has that sort of infamous lip between the two walls there that allows you that overlook of the middle portion of the map. It's not a super long distance to the center of that circle either. So definitely more than just your average charger or your splatling can exceed and excel there. You talk about a player like Dark Odin X, who of course is not going to be in this match, but one of their weapons being the custom Jet Squelcher, a weapon like that could do, I think, quite well. And it's not just that area too. There are boxes on the far east and west sides of the map, and an overlook as well on your right hand side coming out of spawn that allow you for a pretty nice overlook too. And short range weapons to mid range weapons have plenty of opportunities. I think the hallways are short enough to where something like a splash wall can do quite nicely and block off those corridors too.
Absolutely. We will have to wait and see what these teams decide to come out with as we are now heading in here. Humpback, as we were talking about, one of these more close quarters maps, is now we're getting into things here. And actually, what is that? A roller and a Brella coming out of Team Luck, or two rollers actually. Weapons we don't get to see, and a composition we don't get to see here once as well.
That's yet another splashdown weapon, and they are going to go down, as is their Brella counterpart, as well as the foil Flingsa. So that's going to be an early 3-down situation to Bamboo, the last remaining member for Team Luck, as Pig really getting started early with a nice map control there in mid. You can see where the Bamboo is setting up to. The Bamboo setting up just on the right-hand side on one of those lips, and they're actually doing a pretty good job of holding it down. They've chosen the Tenta Missile variant, which of course, Tenta Missile is quite popular these days, able to shred through that wall and shred through 2 players on top of that, looking for a third, and they're gonna find it. And single-handedly, Team Luck doesn't need luck when they have that Bamboozler on their side.
Otani Fire putting in some work here on that Bamboozler, and it's going to translate into a little bit of mid control. Now will they be able to find the opportunity to make a push happen? With Umbrella going down in the middle of the map, they're going to have one less tool at their disposal to be able to do that. Now you're starting to see the rest of these members start to get rushed down, with that Jet Squelcher focusing their fire against another roller on that map, and now being able to take care of that as well. So map control going to switch back to the favor of Pig, and now they're looking for a push their own here. Have to dodge around this roller that's in the center of the map, but they're looking to try to get 2 power clams in. Oh no! Able to go down here, taking care of business. The defense is going to hold only 1 power clam in the basket for now for Pig.
Yeah, I wanted to make the point before that pop happened of, both of these teams were playing quite metered. They're not really pushing the advantage too much. They're really waiting for a great situation. And that push from Pig felt a little bit forced, but that could just also be the great defensive capabilities of Team Luck there. We see the Tenta Missiles again coming out. Pig feels like they have such a meta composition there. They have Tenta Missiles, they have the Jet Squelcher using that role, they have the K-52 and the NZAP, but they're going up against a team that seems to be matching their might with the strength of their own weapons. The foil Flingsa, unfortunately, they're going down along with 2 of their other counterparts. It's yet again Otani Fire left with the Bamboo as the remaining member, and that's going to allow for another break by Pig as the Tenta Missiles come out from the defensive side for Team Luck, and it's going to help as they lose 2, but it's not going to help the lead there against Team Luck as they get all the way up to 41 despite losing 2 members.
Again, as long as you can increase that lead, the better, but we'll have to see what Pig can try to come forward with. As we know, these players are incredibly strong, right? When are they going to start showing up? When are they going to be able to make the adjustments necessary to play around their opponent's composition with their 2 rollers in hand? They've already got these power clams in the basket. We'll have to see what they could try to come forward with, as now Booyah Bombs trying to get thrown at these footballs, trying to make sure that they don't have anywhere to go, that they don't have anywhere to escape. They're all on the back foot here, as now we're starting to see even more pressure coming out of this Pig squad. They're pushing in for a 3rd time, unanswered. More clams heading back into the basket here, and they're looking to, again, keep up this pressure. They haven't gone down quite yet. Now, of course, Otani Fire able to pick off 1. It's going to be a 2-down situation here, perhaps providing another opportunity once more for Team Luck to try to get something going.
And Wami, such an oppressive presence there on that K-52, so difficult to shut down, and that's not also to discredit Rusu, who's been playing that NZAP quite well. But we see here that these rather unconventional weapons, especially this one, the Hero Roller, going to be doing a pretty good job of, if nothing else, staying alive and almost being like a mosquito, just being sort of an annoyance for the members of Pig. But they finally take them down. They are going to have a power clam at their disposal, which they're kind of chucking around to their team members. That's going to be a 1-for-1 trade as well, which is going to currently benefit the members of Team Luck, as they haven't been able to pick up that power clam again, as Team Luck is running out of time. Less than a minute left to go. They still have not popped the barricade quite yet. And on the opposite side of things, they're going to get what I believe is their 4th pop in a row. They have no clams at their disposal, but all they need to do really is whittle down that time and make sure that Team Luck is not building up too many clams of their own.
look at the pressure coming out of this Jet Squelcher. What are the reasons why it's picked so much? That main weapon is able to page so much, and then you have those 10 missiles to boot to move around your opponents when necessary, but it's just anchoring the middle of the map right now, continuing to limit the number of opportunities that these rollers have, that the Brella has, in order to move forward and feel more flexible. There is just not enough paint coverage on the side of Team Luck. They're going to have to find something here if they want to try to move on forward. This hero roller starts to charge on with these curling bombs in tow. They are going to be able to force overtime, but no, there's going to be a power clam thrown in the basket immediately by Team Pig in position, and they'll take game 1 in this best of 3.
Man, very, very difficult to come back against. You talked about how many breaks of that barrier they had in a row, and that just goes to show you the consistency, not just of these players, but of the composition there. A 14 KA with 5 ink armors coming up from Rusu to top the leaderboard. We also have the foil squeezer just below that with 12, so really showing their might and not necessarily needing the instant KO that they could have potentially pushed for if they really wanted to, but not really feeling the need to. The strong map control they hold in mid and the defensive presence that they played. Of course, we said multiple times that they had gotten all members except for Otani fired down and didn't feel too much of a need to just rush in, use a bunch of specials at that time. They played a very, slow-paced game, and I think that's very, in some cases, difficult and less predictable to go up against when you're in that position if your Team Luck trying to defend that, because you're scrambling to get back and looking for the push, but you don't know when and where the push is going to come from. So definitely a really difficult team, both mentally and of course with their play to go up against, but now Team Luck will have the benefit of counterpicking.
And I imagine that they will be grateful for that. Having that counterpick at your disposal when you're playing such a composition that really wants to, look for a specific win condition. When you're playing for these 2 rollers, 1 Brella, you don't have a lot of options. You can't pick a lot of these open maps, right? Certainly, as we were seeing for Humpback, where there's a Jet Squelcher able to pump out so much paint on the map overall, and there's just not much that you can do to try to respond with. We'll have to see what they decide to go to. Of course, obviously, they can't go back there. I don't really know why you'd want to go back to, Humpback. But nonetheless, I imagine we'll probably want to see something closer to maybe a Mako, maybe a Walleye, these, narrow maps perhaps, where they can try to find something that doesn't have to have as much of a focus on paint control and can be something where these rollers can really thrive in these ledge environments and things of that nature to try to catch their opponents off guard.
Yeah, Shiro and Isohachi in particular, in Isohachi's Twitter name is the word roller. So that is not something that's going to be leaving their hands anytime soon. So, as we go to the reef here for the counter pick, this could be somewhat of a sensible play. If Isohachi, stays on the hero roller, which is very likely, that is going to give them a curling bomb for what can have a lot of straightforward alleyways in a map like the Reef. The only other one I could think that would be, better in some cases would be Walleye Warehouse, where there's tons of even narrower hallways to go up against with large walls that prevent anybody from seeing you. But that's going to be tough to go up against, as you're probably going to be facing something with a 10 missiles, maybe even 2 weapons with 10 missiles. This is a very easy to view the entire map when you're lifted up into the air with something like a Booyah Bomb, so visibility is going to be key for the members of Pig, and being hidden and having that surprise advantage is going to be a key factor here for Team Luck. If they're able to sort of get around undetected, that is going to be one of, I think, their win conditions, is being able to get into the backlines or into a situation where they're catching 1 or 2 of these members of Pig off guard, which is a very, very higher difficulty challenge and much easier said than done.
Oh, absolutely, right? We know just how strong these players of Pig are. You're not going to see them just unexpectedly get caught off guard. They're going to have a pretty good idea of playing conservatively, able to, take a step back, take a look at, all right, where is our, weaknesses? Where could these rollers potentially be hiding? And oftentimes the good enough players can try to sniff out some of those sharks, which is one of the reasons why we don't see it as prevalent in play now as we did perhaps a few years ago, or perhaps even back towards Splatoon 1. Very similar compositions coming out for both of these squads. And now we're just going to go ahead and get underway here. Of course, we know the Reef very well. We'll have to see what comes of this now, as Pig is going to have a stab at this map when they're not going up against Forlorns.
Going to be very difficult for Team Luck to go up against this squad. They're already 2 down here, and once again, Otami Luck is one of the last remaining members alive here. 22 clams on the side of Pig as they look to make their first real push and pop of the barricade, which they will get now. They still have the bubbles at their disposal. It's going to be Todo waiting to pop them as 2 other members of Pig allow their specials to come out first. It'll be a 3v2 situation, though, for Team Luck as they try and clean things up, but that's going to be a couple of quick kills from Toto as well as the bubbles, so that could allow for a jump in with 3 clams remaining, but instead they play it safe as they have been throughout. It's been working for them, and they get the first break as well as quite a decent bit of map control, too, that Team Luck has to get through.
But it looks like they're starting to do just that, as Team Luck has now taken control of this bridge area with these 2 rollers. You see the Tenta missiles come out trying to stop them in their tracks. But this bridge control actually hasn't netted them a lot of clams to their name right now either. They don't have a lot of map control just generally in mid, so to your point, able to step on back, able to try to continue this. Now, this Brella, able to find 1, potentially looking for a few more here, is going to allow for a jump to come on in. Will they be able to build up enough clams? Right now, it doesn't look like that's true because Pig has 20 clams to their name, 1 power clam already stacked up, and a handful of others spread across. They are looking to try to control the clam economy here, and they're doing an excellent job at that, preventing Team Luck from really getting a strong foothold in mid and a strong foothold in order to start moving forward. Now it looks like they might have an opportunity to do so with these clams here. The power clam going to get thrown back to a teammate, and now that Tenta missile is coming out to dissuade these rollers from going any further forward. Able to take out 1 here, but now perhaps looking a little bit rough, trying to come up with something now. Just cannot quite seem to make it all work, cannot quite seem to find all of the pieces together all at once to make this push and this barrier break happen.
If you had 2 rollers and a bamboo on your team, what would your 4th weapon want to be to get map control? The answer may surprise you here, as we have the 4th weapon being a Hero Brella, which, granted, does give you some decent options. You have the Sprinkler and the Inkstorm, which are both tailored for that exact purpose, and I think it's partially allowed them to maintain the ability to do things like get around in this alleyway, as we see here from our foil Flingza, that's the word I'm looking for. So, unfortunately, though, what clams they had, they are going to start getting back now. I was going to say they lost, but they have claimed quite a bit, and they're about to take the lead, which they do. Toto going down as well, as it's a 2v2 situation here. The short and long range pair here for Pig, the last remaining defenders, as Team Luck continuing to push forward, trying to throw these last couple of clams in as the foil Flingza goes down. The barricade goes back up, but not without taking the lead here. Very strong push here from Team Luck, as they did a great job, as you mentioned, of getting control of that bridge first, then that underbelly, and then pushing forward once they had a sizable clam amount. But look out, as Pig has the exact same amount at their disposal, and they're looking for revenge.
Looking for revenge here, but one thing I want to call out, you take 1 opportunity to turn away from watching that flank angle on street, and there's a roller right there. That's the win condition, trying to spread across the map, trying to find this opportunity to allow those super jumps to come in. But now the question is, will there be a response coming in from Pig? They're playing from behind now, but with the 2-down situation and with these bubbles at the ready, they're going to be able to find this football going in. How much more will they be able to find as well? They'll be able to find the second football. It looks like it's thrown forward, thrown to a teammate, and that will find the barrier, as the Pig is going to be able to take the lead. It's going to be the delayed wipe here. Still 50 seconds left for Team Luck to come back in this game, and they certainly have the opportunity to do so. It's just going to see, we're going to have to wait and see what kind of a defensive hold Pig can try to make.
And maybe the unsung hero here of Pig is Naruto, hanging back with that Jet Squelcher, farming up Tenta missiles, and really keeping control of that bridge. They're sitting just behind that bridge, just like you would on a map like New Albacore, behind one of those grates, and it's working quite well to their advantage. And you can see just how ready Team Luck is for this final push. They had almost 30 clams at their disposal. They still have a power clam left, as we see Toto guarding one of the power clams that's remaining, and that's brought their total count all the way to 0. They still have one on the map that's going to despawn in just a second, and they're able to pick it up. It's going to be Nanata getting forward and trying to push forward with that power clam, and the break has not, I don't think, happened quite yet. And the couple of specials coming out from Pig might put the kibosh on things, as well as the break of the barricades. So with a lot of clams at their disposal and just about the last of their luck spent, it is going to be Team Luck falling to Pig, who does a great job of sneaking around and popping that barricade just to solidify things at the very end.
11 missiles? Hello? That is incredible. Almost probably spent more missiles than actually getting picks that time around. Of course, the chip damage probably contributed to assist there, but hats off to Pig for even being a little bit aggressive there towards the end. They were not playing very defensively. They were trying to end the game right then and there. They knew they had the power clam. They knew they had the map control. They knew they had all these pieces of the puzzle in order to break that barrier and force overtime to stop, not giving their opponents an opportunity to make some magic happen. It's Team Luck that will fall in our single elimination bracket, and Team Pig will advance. Of course, this squad is going to play on the Japanese stream next against Brainstorm. So that has to be a very interesting set that I know I will want to go back and watch because I cannot wait to see what comes of that one there.
I've done the math. That is 27 seconds per missile use. So 27 seconds to farm up and use each missile in a 5-minute game. So that is sizable. And we see on the bracket here on screen, Pig is going to move on to take on the first seed from the A bracket, Brainstorm. Again, that is the team that had to get through 3 other teams instead of 2 to make it to where they are now in the semifinals. And on the opposite side of the bracket, we still have some matches left to go. The first seed from C versus the second seed from B. I believe that to be Antarctica versus Mystical. And then from the D group, we are going to see Clam Cup Staff Sus, who we saw very early on in this stream, take on the second seed from Group A, which I believe is going to be Clam Pickers. There's 2 very similar teams. There's Clam Pickers and Clam Nerds, and that is going to be Clam Pickers. So definitely going to be fun to see how those matches shake out, but already with Brainstorm and Pig in the semis, this is looking like an imposing bracket stage of this tournament.
It certainly will be here, of course, and from this stage forward, we'll start to have best of 5s as well. So even more high-level Clam Blitz gameplay to stay tuned and watch for. It does look like, update just coming in, Antarctica is able to get that 2-0 over Mystic, and so we'll be watching them next on stream. But before we do that, we'll step aside for a brief break while we wait on this final match to wrap up. We'll be switching over to semifinals in just a little bit. Don't go anywhere, folks. More high-level Japanese Clam Blitz is right around the corner. Welcome back to Season 8 of the Clam World Cup. My name is K-Bot. I am joined by Zach, and we are in for a treat here for the next few matches, semifinals and finals. We're starting with a team we haven't seen versus a team we saw at the very beginning of the day. It's Antarctica versus Clam Cup staff. These are the players you see on your screen. Of course, Nagora, one of the players that catch your eye. Onex, a player we're a little bit more familiar with on the Western side, as someone who has joined us for a handful of events here and there. So we'll have to see what comes of this one. Of course, on the other side of the bracket, it's Brainstorm versus Pig. And we'll just have to wait and see who's going to come out on top of that one, because that's going to be a really fun one to see. But nonetheless here, Zach, what are you looking out for as we head to Humpback?
Well, surely this will be a good match, K-Bot, and surely the other one will too. Surely. But, I mean, Clam Cup staff is just such an imposing team. I believe between the four of them, you have three 3,000 XP players and a 2950 XP. That is... shaking in my boots scary, if I say so myself. And that's, of course, not to discredit Antarctica. Onex, also part of the 2900 club. That is going to be, again, the height of competition here, and why I'm so looking forward to this match, as we appear to be starting on Humpback Pump Track once again. This was definitely a map that was quite back and forth, and something where, again, I don't think we're going to see a lot of deviation. Of course, we haven't watched Antarctica yet, but from Clam Cup staff, I think a lot of their weapons play well here. Things like the foil squeezer, or even something like an NZAP, or not that we've seen it yet, but maybe something like a Neo Splashomatic. Those shooter types that just fire straight and true do very, very well for you in a game like this, and on a map where you really need to be aware of your surroundings, because that circular nature of it means you could be flanked from anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. To your point earlier, by the way, about the X Power, apparently we're getting informed Penguin got 3,000 XP earlier today. So certainly another player to watch out for in this lobby as we go ahead to take care of things. It's semifinals of this Japanese Clam Blitz tournament, as we see the weapon compositions here come out once more. Clam Cup staff, very similar to what we saw from them earlier in the day, but Antarctica Tri-Slosher paired with this custom Jet Squelcher, Foil Squeezer, and NZAP. It'll be interesting to see if this Tri-Slosher can start getting in these positions in order to make things incredibly easy.
That's Takenoko on the Tri-Slosher. They're running both the Ninja Squid and the Stealth Jump, so really trying to play to the stealth game here as they use their burst bombs efficiently, sharking on this wall, and it's allowed them to sort of fight, at least, for the middle of the map. Not that they've necessarily controlled it. We also have a Nozzle Nose, as we see a quick double there on the side of the Foil Squeezer here. And I believe that's going to be Penchan, as we see now an Inkjet from Himajin pushing forward as the 2-down situation comes around. Antarctica falling 2 members as the map is becoming progressively more green. Still no big push, though, and not a sizable amount of clams yet for either side, with the largest being 12.
Very neutral as these teams continuing to go pick for pick here. Now this Rapid coming up with 1, looking for a few more here, and looking to try to put a little bit more pressure here where their opponents might be coming from. You'll notice neither one of these teams really has built up a lot of map control. It's kind of split down the middle, green and blue, right down the middle of this map. And so we'll see who starts to make the first move, who starts to cape first things here, as now we see a trade, now a few specials coming back and forth here as we're starting to see this push coming on forward at the hands of this Pensa Gal. That's Clam Cup staff able to throw in the first few clams of this game, but just how much more will they be able to find? Doesn't look like it's going to be that many more. Looking to try to reapproach here, but does not have the time. That bear is going to go back up, and a rather strong defense coming in from Antarctica.
Yeah, about what we'd expect from the X power of both of these teams being so similar. And when a K-52 walks right at you, what are you going to do? And the answer is not very much, as IU cleaned up a lot there, just as Dark Odin is trying to with his Stingray. They're able to get one, but nothing more, as Himajin pushing forward almost to the enemy spawn there with the Inkjet, trying to pop some of the attention there from Antarctica. They will eventually fall. That's going to be the L3 Nozzle Nose D that's being used, by the way, as we go back to spectating IU, who's going to be jumping in almost with this Booyah Bomb at the ready. 17 clams at the disposal here for Clam Cup staff. And the Booyah's coming out, indicating that the Booyah Bomb is going to help regain some control of mid, but still quite a lot of blue. It's looking like Antarctica, short of not having many clams, is playing a very, very strong defense in the mid game here.
And now, 3-down situation for Clam Cup staff. Antarctica has 2 members in mid, able to continue building up more map control, building up a few of their specials at their disposal with the Stingray and these bubbles to boot. Now they might be looking to try to make a push here, as we see Penguin come up with one, looking for a second here with this nozzle nose, trying to make an opportunity for this power flame to come in, and there it is, allowing for the jump to come on forward. Have a few more clams in the area, but already 2-down situation, so much green right in front of the barrier, almost in an instant, able to punish this push brilliantly here is Clam Cup staff. They'll now be able to get a solid hold of mid and look to make a push of their own.
This is a masterclass in why you want to make sure that your push is well-timed. They got the 3-down situation, but now Clam Cup staff have turned this on its head with almost 20 full clams. They're using the Inkjet, the Ink Armor, the Booyah Bomb. What haven't they used at this point? As the Inkjet gonna run out, it's mostly just applying pressure here away from this basket so that they can dunk as many clams as possible. It's going to allow them to extend this lead to 41. They're not done yet, as that timer's about to run out, but they throw a wall, get one clam in, extend it just a little bit. That's 2 more, bringing it down to 32, but that is going to be all but their L3 Nozzle Nose D falling there. But getting it to 32 with a minute left is going to make it difficult for Antarctica, who has a 20-point penalty to contend with to break through, as they're going to have to use that power flame for that purpose and then stay alive long enough. Thankfully for them, though, 2 armors could be at their disposal when they make a push.
And they'll certainly be looking to try to use those at their disposal. But already one going down to the hands of Nagora, looking to try to punish here, is able to find that one onto Penguin as well. And now they've, don't have a lot of windows of opportunity here to try to make a push back. With just 25 seconds left to go, Penguin's going to have to build up map control. They're going to have to build up their specials. They're going to have to build up so much in order to get back into underneath this barrier. And they don't have many members around to be able to do that. They're looking to try to do that now, but they don't have a power clam at their name quite yet. Throwing the clam, scrambling around, able to find one. Now they'll be able to find the follow-up necessary. With 2 members down on the other side, this actually looks quite doable. Bubbles in front of the barrier, perhaps able to stall out for just long enough. The power clam's going to come on back forward. They're able to find the jump and the clam, and it'll be Antarctica taking game 1.
That was all 4 specials back to back to back to back in such a short amount of time that how can you respond to that, especially when 2 of those are armors layered perfectly on top of each other, just as the KAs are similarly layered perfectly 10, 9, 8, 8 on the side of Antarctica, not giving up for a moment, and that shows you just how back and forth the nature of this is. I'm glad this one is going to be a best of 5. We're going to see, I think, some back and forth action that could lend itself to a game 5 situation. Clam Cup staff, though, not without their moments of brilliance here. Of course, Himajin using that Inkjet to back the members of Antarctica off as soon as they were making a push, almost like a pseudo baller or bubble blower, in the way that they have to sort of contend with that first before they even push forward on their defensive side. But Antarctica really, really coordinated there near the end, got a pick or 2 that lended itself to not only building their specials, but giving them the advantage, and then not allowing Clam Cup to set foot as they allow that last jump in and finish off game 1.
Impressive stuff, certainly, there coming in from Antarctica. Able to coordinate things, especially when you're on that time crunch at the end of the game. Well done overall. But of course, as you mentioned, there's potential for a game 5 here, especially with counter picks at play. It'll be interesting to see where Clam Cup staff decides to take this. Probably looking for something where perhaps that Rapid Blaster can really thrive of Nagora. We'll have to see. Again, it's hard to predict these teams at times, given the fact that, we don't really watch them often. And it does sound like, I don't think this is a map that I would have predicted, seeing as how we have not seen it yet today. We're heading to Manta Maria for our counter pick here, Zach.
Yeah, a couple points to keep in mind. This is a pretty small tournament, only 13 teams. We didn't see a single upset relative to how their placements went in the round robin portion in the first round of brackets here, but this is where it starts to really get contentious. And as we go to Manta Maria, it has a similar long rectangular layout, or I guess this one's more oval shaped, but similar to Walleye in the way that it's stretched out so thin to where you have to be very careful of where you're setting up, because if you go down, if you don't have a jumping point, it's going to take you quite a large amount of time to get back to the middle of the map. There are some grates in the middle of the map as well that you can use to walk around on. We're not seeing that many long-range weapons. I think maybe a Rapid Blast or a Jet Squelcher is what the extent of what you'll see here, but plenty of opportunities for sharking on a wall if you want to run that Tri-Slosher again with the Stealth Jump and the Ninja Squid. That could play out well for you on a map like this one.
Another thing to watch out here for, most likely going to end up having at least an Inkjet, I imagine. Although, no, actually doesn't look like it. I was going to say, I feel like I remember seeing a lot of Inkjet plays where they were able to pop it over the bunker, able to rain down fire near the barrier area, but actually neither one of these teams opting for that. Instead, sticking to the current kind of meta where they're really going to be prioritizing things like these bubble blowers to get themselves into the basket, open up these windows of opportunities, and force their opponents away. So we'll have to see what exactly comes of this as we're starting off very neutral here. These teams really starting to feel each other.
Yeah, Takenoko is respecting here, ended up going into K52. And on the opposite side of things for Clam Cup staff, we see the ballpoint splatling Nevo make its return. Great map here for Squid Beacons. This is quite a long map to get back into. Dark Odin next going to be popping that Stingray there on that custom Jet Squelcher, and it's going to help result in a 3-down situation for Clam Cup staff, with the last remaining member being that backliner, that anchor. So now Azu pushing forward here, trying to make a play as they get the kill onto Nigora. And now as we have 26 clams for Antarctica and map control in mid, this might be the time that we see the first push happen, as that number only continues to grow and the bubbles start to show.
Not gonna happen this time around, though. 2 down. Now there's the delayed wipe coming in here, and so the hold is going to stand true for Clam Cup staff. Now potentially looking to try to make a play of their own, but no. The first member forward is going to get caught out by Odin X on this Jet Squelcher, holding back for the Antarctica squad. And so we're still going to see things play very neutral. And I think at this high level, this map especially is going to be all about trying to make sure that you're capitalizing on perhaps the one push that you're able to actually squeak through, because these players are certainly feeling each other's skill level at this point, as we've seen trades back and forth. We've seen even when one team's able to build up a little bit of momentum, something doesn't quite happen all to plan, as now we see more trades in the middle of the map. It's 2 for 2, but we're already starting to see one player start to push on forward, looking for this one here on behalf of the Clam Cup staff. That ball is going to find the barrier, but will there be follow-up? As now we see these clams getting collected, now trying to hop over this box, able to find, join the teammate here, throw in these clams, and actually get this push down quite significantly. We're already down to the 24-point mark here. Where else are these clams going to come in from? A few coming in from right in front of the opponent's spawn. 2 down on either side now as we switch back, looking for a few more clams. They have enough to finish this game, and it will be true that they do. Clam Cup staff going to find the 100-0 about halfway through the game clock in order to take us to a game 3 at an even scoreline.
This goes all the way back to the Antarctica side of the map when we see Dark Odin X pop the Stingray and we see the NZAP player pop their Ink Armor at the same time. That gives you what should be a sizable advantage here. You have your close range players armored up, able to take an extra shot or two, and the Stingray able to find and try and locate and even hopefully eliminate one of the members of Clam Cup staff. But it doesn't happen that way. Clam Cup staff has the Ink Storm in the middle of the map, which helps them maintain map control and strip away that Ink Armor. It allows them to get a couple of kills, and then we see what is probably one of the most textbook looking starts to a push that you can get. You have the bubbles come out right as the super jumps begin to happen, the power clam hanging about, and that's going to provide a strong start. And again, the spawn one not super close to the basket, so you have to really rush to try and get into a position where you can fight this. But at the same time, members like IU are just going back, finding 3 or 4 clams, using the wall to get up, which of course Antarctica can't see. They can't ink that either. either, and they can't really push past their barrier. So that allows them to continue extending that timer, and ultimately leads to a KO. That was just a brilliant display from Clam Cup staff to tie it at 1 apiece.
And now we're heading to the Antarctica counter pick here, which is to Mako Mart. I believe we've seen them pull out the Tri-Slosher here, so perhaps not super surprising. This Tri-Slosher could potentially put in a little bit of work, has a lot of ledges that it can work around, has those stacks on either side of the map, both on the offensive and defensive side, to start trying to rain down some fire. So we'll have to see what comes of this one here as well. But, you know, both these teams definitely trying to get a feel for themselves and trying to get a feel for their opponents as we continue forward in this set. Again, in this best of 5, they've got a little bit more time to adjust and adapt to their opponents. So we'll have to see what comes of this. Again, loading into this one, these players not taking any time on the weapon select screen. They know exactly what they're loading into this map with. And it does appear to be the case that we're not going to see many changes either side of the map. Let's get it rolling for game 3.
Gotta love Takenoko going back to the Tri-Slosher. However, changing out Stealth Jump for Object Shredder, all 4 members of Antarctica using Object Shredder on their kit, really trying to get rid of what will inevitably be the splash walls from the K-52, and also the bubbles that came out that ended up being their downfall in Game 2. We see the Tri-Slosher sharking around and really using those burst bombs to their advantage to stay atop this platform, but suction bombs and splash walls will not make that an easy task. We're on a pretty even keel so far in this one. Both teams trying to sort of feel each other out and get control of mid. It looks like that war is mostly being won by Clam Cup staff at this point, and not only that, but they are about to have 3 total specials online. There goes the Booyah Bomb, there goes the Bubble Blower, and there goes the barrier for Antarctica's basket. So that is going to allow Clam Cup staff a pretty sizable start here. They still have 4+ clams at their disposal. That's going to get them all the way to 32, and I don't think they're done yet. The members of Antarctica scrambling, not wanting this to happen so early or at all. It looks like they might finally have some respite, but no. IU able to take one out from behind. It's going to be 2 down. It's just the CJS and the Tri-Slosher remaining, and it won't be enough. They won't be able to get the Stingray out in time, and it might not have mattered anyway. That's going to be a stomp of a match from Clam Cup staff as they look to hopefully end this one next game.
Look at how fast they were on so many fronts. Not only it was immediate, 2-down situation. Okay, there's the opportunity to make a push happen, especially with the other 2 members out of position to try to defend the barrier or have a meaningful impact on it. Now's our time to go. What do? They've got a power clam already built up. They just start running forward. They take care of business, and then they set up such that all 3 of their members are in a very similar location, but they're covering different parts of where their opponents might drop in from, trying to make sure that they have this safe haven around this barrier, especially with things like Tagoro's Rapid Blaster, able to take care of adding a little bit of chip damage and then throwing something else there to actually take out their opponents. The Antarctica was just continuing to go 2 down after 2 down after 2 down, and it continued to snowball out of control, especially with players that were scrambling back to continue picking up clams and picking those forward to throw them into the barrier. Textbook play there on that offensive hold for Mako Mart. Now we're going to the final counter pick for Antarctica. It's Walleye Warehouse coming out this time around, and I'm not sure if I like that pick, especially what we've seen out of the past 2. If we see Clam Cup staff get in position, they can very easily lock you out.
Very strong analysis, Mr. K-Bot. And I was going to say I have mixed feelings about this. I really think this is basically just Manta Maria 1.0. I guess Manta Maria being the 2.0 of Walleye. And this is something that we saw earlier in this tournament could be an absolute stomp. This is going to be potentially more swingy than the map that we just saw if one team gets an early advantage. However, there are its benefits. You do have long lanes for which your longer weapons to excel if they try and push forward here. There's a little bit of sightline blockage from those alleyways and some walls that you can shark on if you really want to continue on with this Tri-Slosher. We may see Takenoko go back to the K-52. We'll have to check that out, and it looks like they will. I think that's the smart choice. I think these hallways get locked down better with the walls, the splash walls, than anything that second armor could provide you. Despite that, you still need to maintain your survivability, so Azu's role here is going to be very important.
certainly going to be important to see what these 52s do on either side of the map to maintain their presence overall, and a one-for-one trade to open things out. These opening seconds could be incredibly scary depending on who is able to find the first wipe and who is able to start setting themselves up for a potential lockout around this barrier area. It looks like we're starting to see a few picks continuing to come in for Clam Cup staff. These bubbles get popped, trying to find a little bit more of a presence here, and they're trying to buy some time for their opponents to come in, but that Stingray is at the ready and at the back for Odin X, preventing anything more than a power clam from finding the basket, which is exactly what you need from them to stay alive here.
You know, Odin X is their captain. That could have been just the choice of, this map is great for Stingray, just let me sit back, build up my Stingray, and use it when they get too close. And it seemed to work out there. They only got the power clam through, and they were able to deal with the rest of the members before they lost anything. They had, I believe, over 20 power clams, or regular clams, not 20 power clams at their disposal. They've built up 15 already, so clearly the advantage of finding clams has been with Clam Cup staff this whole time. Now, with 3 specials at the ready despite losing a member, it's Antarctica's turn to play strong defense and build up some of that map control there. Of course, Darko next going to be saving his, but for the other two, that's going to be where your advantages shine, especially as they've found a pick on the Rapid Blaster, which means only one Ink Armor to contend with from Clam Cup staff.
But even still, they go 2 down, and how they're going to start pushing forward as IU is able to find one. Now on the front lines here, trying to challenge Unex, but is going to fall nonetheless. It's a 3-down situation and only one jump to try to get away here. It's not going to happen, and finally some breathing room for Antarctica. They were kind of, struggling to find a way to get some map control, but it looks like with their opponent stepping a little bit too far forward, they're able to punish that, capitalize on it, convert it into map control, converted into some clam control here as well, but now they'll be able to sniff off their opponents. It looks like here trying to find some, as we see on this side. It's going to be a trade for this Kensa 52 gal. Well, not much else is coming of this now, as we're starting to see Clam Cup staff push back into mid, push back into trying to get some more clams to their own name, and make things neutral at the halfway point in this game.
Yeah, Antarctica's clearly sniffed out the defensive strategy, right? They've defended 2 pushes successfully. They were not even able to pop a power clam on the next one, and they've gotten 2 down in the situation. This is probably one of their best offensive chances so far, but you can see they're still cleaning up mid. They still have quite a bit of work to do. Those 2 slays are not going to really help you that much in terms of the push, but having that middle map control is going to be a big step forward. Now we see Antarctica helping themselves to a Stingray yet again. The Booyah Bomb coming out from IU as 20 clams are gained by their team once again. You can see how well, too, this Splash Ball fits in these hallways, although it's quickly melted down by the Object Shredder favoring Antarctica. They'll lose a member, but Clam Cup staff will lose 2 as well. It's a back and forth, but this type of play currently favors Clam Cup staff, as all they need to do is sit back, maintain control of mid, grab the clams so that Antarctica can't, and hold their lead, rather, for as long as they can before pushing forward.
But it's worth noting, on this map, when it rains, it pours. Expect that once a team is able to find a solid push into mid with no answer from their opponents, they could even find a 100-0 knockout. So while it's important that Clam Cup staff does have that power clam in the barrier, any push on this map from either team could mean the game. And indeed, with only 60 seconds left to go, there's just enough time, perhaps for an answer to go back both directions, but we're starting to see a push here come in finally for Antarctica. Clam Cup staff. They're actually able to extend their lead here as they've got some specials here continuing forward. You see those bubbles still in position, not popping these so far, just trying to allow for this time to stall just a little while longer. 2-down situation. These members starting to back on away for Clam Cup staff, as Antarctica might have found an opportunity to start pushing forward. But again, now it's really true. Clam Cup staff just needs to play defense. They just need to be able to hold off their opponents, but it looks like they're faltering at the moment, and green ink is spreading all across the map.
Antarctica with 26 clams at their disposal. They're going to have the bubbles to try and jump in, and they have the Booyah Bomb as well to get some ink and jump in to break this barrier. That's going to be 1 going down. They have a power clam still at their disposal. There's going to be 16 clams together, and that's a 2-down situation, but they will lose their K52, which means that wall coverage will not be there, but they don't need it. They're going to take the lead, and as you said, K-Bot, when it rains, it pours. Doesn't matter for them that all they have left is their end zap, and now the members of Clam Cup staff scrambling to try and help this one not go to a game 5 as they have 18 clams at the ready. They have a good amount of map control in mid, and this one is still going on, at least for the moment.
My calculation could be wrong, but I believe 2 power clams would do it. They just need to get these members in position and able to find this. Now those bubbles are coming in, but they just didn't have quite enough time. They were so close to making it happen, but nonetheless stalled for just long enough. Are these members of Antarctica to send us to a game 5?
Time, that fickle beast, allows for Antarctica to hold on to what you called out a slim but demanding lead there, as they were able to use that one push strongly to their advantage. And that is exactly what I think they were hoping for. The defense eventually paid off to where they were able in the middle of the match to get control back of mid. It was really Clam Cup staff's game at that point, as they were the only ones with any notable pushes or attempts at pushes, but Antarctica there finally having all of the pieces of the puzzle, or of Exodia, take your pick, to take off on that push, get down just far enough to where Clam Cup staff needed to regroup with literally no time left on the clock. I believe they shut that push down with a couple seconds left and then going into overtime, but the clock barely runs out on them in overtime, and that will indeed lead us to a game 5, which is going to be so interesting to see now what Clam Cup staff picks as their final counter-picked map.
Isn't it amazing, though, that we can go for like 3 minutes, 4 minutes at the beginning of the game with a single push, and then see 3 barrier breaks at the end of the game that ultimately end up deciding it, going back and forth. I think that shows when push comes to shove, these players are going to be even more desperate. They're going to find, opportunities. They're going to find ways to get themselves in. And at the same, by the same token, perhaps when you start to get nervous, you start to make a few mistakes. You start to overstep your bounds just a little bit further than you should. And players at this level are going to be able to capitalize on just that. We're still waiting on the counter pick to come in from Clam Cup staff. Of course, they're able to take that here. Only time will tell exactly what they pick. Obviously, they only have 4 maps that they're to choose at this point, as we see, what is happening here. But nonetheless, it'll be interesting to see what they come up with here for this final game 5. Maybe they decide to change things up, although we haven't seen them change much for the rest of this tournament. But come on, they have to have something in their back pocket, right? At this point, that we haven't seen yet.
Well, I think the thing they have in their back pocket is the first and only opportunity to counterpick in this set, and that is going to be a interesting proposition. We have seen them succeed on Manta Maria and Mako Mark. Those maps are not dissimilar in how they play, but also we made the comparison between Manta and Walleye, and Antarctica was able to take Walleye. And I think there's a lot of tangible strong points that they are able to run away with from that game 4 despite the loss. So as we see here, Moray Towers appears to be the final pick, the only counter pick coming out from Clam Cup staff. And K-Bot, I know for sure you wanted to see this one come out.
Moray Towers in this game 5 that we have to try to pick apart. This will surely be interesting, and this is probably the antithesis of Walleye. You're going to be seeing a lot of smaller clan pushes as these teams are building things up in order to get in. It's going to be a tale of probably who can end up throwing in the most power clans over the course of this game. Of course, any amount of clan collection that you can do will help. But nonetheless here, we'll see what comes to this. Interesting that Onex is sticking with the custom jet squelcher, opting for this Stingray here despite the verticality that Moray Towers is known for.
Yeah, you no longer have to deal with just the shape of the map on a flat plane. You now have to deal with all of the elevation changes that these players can take to try and avoid that special. But otherwise, quite similar compositions with the K-52 foil squeezer and an armor forming weapon 2 on the side of Clam Cup staff. However, it is going to be Antarctica, at least for the moment, trying to make a push. They are going to get just enough there to break the barrier and also have the bubbles at their disposal. That's actually going to be 2 power clams going into the basket to give Antarctica an early start at the lead. They will lose their foil squeezer, so some of that aggression is going to go down, as will their chances at getting in any more clams on this push. They lose a couple of members in mid, and you can see here just how untouched these opposite sides of the map are. And even though this is such a huge match, so much of the fighting is going to take place in this middle arena.
Yeah, it absolutely will. It's exactly where these clam barriers are, and it's exactly where all of these teams want to end up going to, as we start to see what kind of a push potential the Clam Cup staff has at their disposal. You see 22 clams at the ready. We'll see what they can try to build up here, but it is going to be occasionally difficult to find your way back in here, especially when you know your opponent can just kind of sit back, wait for you to react, and they're the ones that have the high ground here. It looks like we are going to see one pick. That's Azu, able to find that one onto Odin X. Not able to play, a little bit tricky this time around, opening things up here. But now we're seeing potentially a push try to come together. The Blue Bomb comes out, but there's no one else around right now for the clam or for Antarctica to try to make something happen out of this. Bubbles trying to come out here, but that's going to get met right with IU on this 52. And so these barriers, these teams going back and forth, running across the map, trying to find something to make it first. But we are still pretty even at the halfway point of this game. Finally, a jump comes in for a power claim as well. But no, IU going to fall off the map here. Unfortunately, it's going to be a 3-down situation for Clam Cup staff, and they are looking unlikely to take the lead this time around.
Very back and forth, and I definitely want to call out the ink rails too. That is something that is not used on a lot of maps, but on this one, when you're doing a lot of your fighting in mid and every little bit of vertical advantage counts, sort of riding around and jumping up, taking some shots, and jumping back into the ink rail, as we see Takenoko attempting to do here, is going to be important. The Stingray also coming out from Odin X. That's going to help provide some pressure. 1 kill so far. That's going to land on the Rapid Blaster Pro Deco, as we see the K52 trying to shark around a couple members. Kunotan and IU falling back to not only get their ink trail back, but also claim some clams, as both of these teams remain as they have been all series, even with each other. However, Antarctica with the map control in mid, the Booyah Bomb from Clam Cup staff going to try and combat that. Niagara going low here, but not quite going all the way down, and that's important as they have their armor at the ready, as does the NZAP, which could signal the beginning of a push here for Clam Cup staff.
Potentially so, and they are going to be able to find a clam in the basket. It is going to actually convert into the lead. They're going to go 3 down for it, but they take the lead nonetheless. It's going to mean that Antarctica has to find a way to get a power clam and 1 into the basket, which should be a doable task here. But of course, we've seen just how neutral this game can be, and there might be a window of opportunity for their opponents to push back in. Next on the Stingray, looking to try to sniff out some of these members of Clam Cup staff. Not going to work this time around, as the Blue Bombs are going to fly back and forth alongside this ink armor for Antarctica. They're looking to try to continue to push. They're looking to find their power clam, to find their opportunity to seal this game away. But no, now we're going to see 1 go down on that to the hands of IU. Now looking to try to come on back in here, defend the barrier, looking to try to allow for this to come on in. That's going to be 1 jump back. That's going to be punished. 2-down situation for Antarctica and Clam Cup staff. So far, holding on. They're able to actually find a power clam in the basket, extending their lead just slightly. As these bubbles are going to continue to come out, they're going to try to push forward, find a few more clams in the basket, making sure that they got a little bit of a safety barrier and a little bit of insurance on the event that they get things back the other direction. But nonetheless, we see a double here come out and a few more members going down. They're going to be looking for the knockout, and they are going to find it, throwing in an extra clam in overtime. It's Clam Cup staff able to hold on for that entire game.
What a close set. I definitely say, though, Clam Cup staff looked like slightly the stronger team throughout the entirety of that set. You can see there Niagara going at the top with a 10 KA and 5 ink armors. And it was pretty funny, too, watching IU and Takenoko basically play catch with each other with Booyah Bombs, as we saw one get thrown there by Takenoko and then IU throwing it back. And then I think we saw on stream Takenoko go down 3 or 4 straight times, and that was, of course, due to them having to jump back in to try and get back into the action faster. Very fun set there as we see the win from Clam Cup staff. And on the opposite side of the bracket, it looks like we have Brainstorm leading Pig 2-1. So that match not quite done either. That shows you, once we get to this semifinal portion, how close in skill level these 4 remaining teams are.
It looks like Brainstorm versus Pig could potentially even go the distance, although, at the moment, Brainstorm currently getting a push going on Wahoo World for their Game 4. They're in the lead of that game. This game is being streamed on the Japanese broadcast right now. So while we go ahead and wait for this set, I do believe we'll be taking a step away, folks. We will be covering grand finals in just a little bit to watch Clam Cup staff, that's Nagora's team, go up against the winner of Brainstorm versus Pig. It'll either be they're either going up against Cruiser Boy, Melon, and Roto, or it'll be Rusu's team, right? So high-level Japanese Clan Blitz play here to finish your morning off. Don't go anywhere, folks. We will be back in just a little bit for finals of Clam World Cup Season 8. We are just about ready for the finals of Season 8 of the Clam World Cup, a Japanese Clam Blitz only tournament. And this is some of the highest level Clam Blitz gameplay that we can find, which is exactly why we're bringing it all to you this morning on the IPL channel. My name is K-Pod. I'm joined by Shiny, Hunter, Zach. And this set is bound to be an interesting one. Two teams we've seen plenty from today, Brainstorm and Clam Cup Staff. Both these teams coming off of their semifinals victories over strong opponents. And we'll just have to wait and see who's going to be able to take it here.
Yeah, not without their struggles either. I think in the first round in the quarterfinals, we saw both teams kind of steamroll their way through. Granted, best of three, but they were facing the second seed from the other respective groups. But in the semifinals, things heated up. Things got a lot tougher on the Japanese stream. Brainstorm taking on Pig. Game 3 especially was 1-1, and the score was 30-24, so very close and contentious match there. And of course, right here on IPL Splatoon, we saw the Clam Cup Staff team taking on Antarctica in what honestly could have gone either way, but Clam Cup Staff looking just a bit stronger there, which will lead them straight into the finals. Folks like Naigora and Himajin taking on some very impressive players of their own and some Clam Cup past victors as well, in, I believe, Honoka at least, as well as folks like Ryusei Boy, Melon, and Roto rounding out the roster.
And of course, we are already getting underway here on Wahoo World for our Game 1 random map. As a reminder, folks, we are only watching this month's Clam Blitz solo queue rotation. So 8 maps in the pool. We're starting here on Wahoo World as the random pick. And you see the weapon compositions play pretty much exactly what these teams have been playing all day so far today.
Yep, seeing the Tri-Slosher come back from Honoka. We are seeing the K-Shot, which is a Western specialty, but not something we've seen all too often in this tournament today. And it's actually coming out from both sides of the map here. So on the side of Clam Cup Staff, they are going to be bringing back their ballpoint Splatling Nouveau. That's going to give them some range and also some passive inking. But as you mentioned, we're seeing a lot of comfort picks, which just so happen to also be quite meta picks as well.
And hey, anytime that you can find comfort picks that are the meta, the better here. Already, barrier getting broken by Brainstorm here. They're looking to try to continue pushing forward. 10 missiles come out here, trying to maintain their presence, but they just cannot quite seem to find that and allow for more clams to find this barrier. As now we're seeing Clam Cup Staff get pushed right back into mid, try to take a little bit more map control back from their opponents here. And pushing them away, dissuading them from sticking around and trying to extend their push just a little while longer.
Yep, it's going to be Naigora here on the ballpoint Splatling Nouveau. I like what they're doing here where they're using these walls as an extra added bit of not only range, but also the sight lines that it gives them. However, the flank from Honoka on the Tri-Slosher is not going to allow them to do that. That's going to be a 2-down situation on the side of Clam Cup Staff, which should give Brainstorm an opportunity here. They have just under 20 clams, and on the opposite side of things, Clam Cup Staff going to be expending the Bubble Blower, which they would like normally to use for a push of their own. However, lending it for their defensive purposes this time around. They're going to use a Bria Bomb here, and that's going to be Brainstorm trying to take the zone, an area right in front of the barrier to make things happen. They're able to get a cheeky little kill there on the flank and actually able to dodge and get the second as well. And that's going to give them a great amount of momentum as they force a 3-down situation and are getting close to breaking that barricade.
Are you kidding me, Melon? How do you survive that? And then you come up with the double in order to allow this opportunity for your team to start pushing forward. The unfortunate part, your team doesn't have any power clams right now. They go 4 down right in front of their barrier, and they're not able to take away anything to show for it. Only that power clam they threw in earlier in the match. We'll see what the response is coming in from Clam Cup Staff as Naigora and company are starting to push on forward here. You see 10 missiles come out. They've got a few power clams of their own, and now the bubbles are going to come out here as well, allowing for one power clam to find the basket. Would they be able to sneak back, find enough paint control to find the second? They will. It's going to find the barrier here, and we're seeing IU pushing forward, trying to beat be a little bit more of a menace on the opponent's backside. It's a 2-down, 3-down situation even still for them, and it's going to allow for more opportunities for this squad to continue stepping back, picking up more clams, and then pushing on forward, extending their lead even longer. Now Power Clam jumping in. It is going to get taken care of, though. They see that one coming from a mile away, and it's going to be a final 3-down situation on the side of Clam Cup staff. Finally able to send this push back away, but a hefty push down to the 21-point mark.
Yeah, finally Brainstorm able to stop the hemorrhaging there, but really it comes down to, we saw that K52 just doing a wonderful job of knowing when to back off and take the liberty of being away from their splash wall, and then when they get in trouble, get back under it and avoid a lot of those shots. Now we see Himajin popping the bubbles under the central part of the map, using it as a bit of cover to get away, as they're still looking to gather some clams. They're even now at 15 clams apiece, and they're also even as it was a 2-down situation for both teams. However, it's going to be Brainstorm with 2 specials at their disposal. It's going to be the Booyah Bomb coming out first, followed by the Tenta Missiles, and it's going to lend them into a kill onto Himajin. A second one coming out there onto Kurokuro, and that's going to allow them to break the barricade, and the splash ball is going to come out right in front of Spawn. However, that hide in that verticality from Nigora is going to allow them to kill, and that might stop this push in its tracks. However, they had enough claims to keep it going. What they did not have was the presence in front of the barrier, and that's a pretty sizable defense there.
As you mentioned, this ballpoint putting in so much work, much like we'd see a Jet Squelcher do here, except it's just a little bit of a different color. Continuing to pump out the green ink in front of this barrier to make it that much more difficult for Clam Cup staff to find other opportunities and other ways into this basket. That constant map presence is going to be the most critical piece here. And now they still have to find an answer, but they've got 2 power clams ready with just 8 seconds here left to go. Will they be able to find the specials in order to come back in here? Melon going down is going to be huge. Melon's not going to have the window of opportunity to find another play happen, but all the meanwhile, the rest of the team looks like they're taking care of business. It's a 3-down situation. They're juggling 3 power clams. They're going to be looking to find that final one in, and they are going to be able to take it in just the nick of time. Oh my goodness, that was only game 1. We've got a set in store for finals.
Rap God K-Bot returns there to commentate over a beautiful return push and eventual knockout from Brainstorm. Now able to take the 1-0 lead, and this shows you again just how close in skill level these teams are. You can never count out players like Melon and Ryusei Boy, and you talked about Ryusei Boy doing such a strong job there of holding down the fort and of holding down the long-range anchor position. That became very, very important. And they didn't just sort of hang out on the high ground. They were down in the trenches, really making sure that they had the members of Clam Cup staff pushed back, and so that it required multiple pushes and multiple team fight wins instead of just one before they were able to get anything going.
Yeah, impressive stuff there on the whole here. For Brainstorm, able to find their way back in, taking care of business, and, you know, even able to find ways around some of those defensive presences that Clam Cup staff was able to put out. Obviously, we're watching Nagoro talking about him on the ballpoint there, able to just continue to put in work and try to keep that barrier area inked, but nonetheless, didn't end up working that time around. Brainstorm takes game 1, taking us to the Clam Cup staff counter pick, and they are heading to the Reef this time around. Must be feeling a little more confident, I imagine, probably with that Rapid Blaster as well coming in here. So I imagine we'll probably see at least Nagora probably go back for that one.
Yeah, this is not a huge surprise. This has been, I believe, a counterpicking favorite for today. The Reef, you know, pretty balanced map in terms of it's not one of those super long rectangular maps. It's not something with a bunch of uninkable surfaces in the way. It's just a straightforward, relatively square map with some decent obstacles and some hallways for your weapons that use splash walls, for example, to excel. Well, I'll be interested to see if they bring a Stingray weapon here because the map is more square than it is linear. That is going to be be difficult to pull off. However, if a team decides to push through the alleyway, that is a very long, straightforward, condensed area that a Stingray can really do some work in. So that, I think, will be one of the bigger questions. Of course, another question that we've seen is which team will pop off in terms of will they favor the 1 armor comp or the 2 armor comp? And if they pick 2, what are they going to forego in order to make that composition work? And will it, of course, pay off in their favor?
The sacrifices that you need to make when considering building your weapon compositions here to try to find a way to victory for both of these squads will be interesting to see what comes of this, as of course we do see both teams actually opting to pick a blaster here. There's plenty more work that can be done with this weapon in addition to having that ink armor, and of course we see that second ink armor come out of Brainstorm here as well with that Tri-Slosher, able to continue providing ways for the 52 and that K-Shot to step forward, find a few more picks, and take care of business, especially when someone's piloting that Kensu 52, as we know Melon can.
Yeah, smart move there by Rookville to jump out and maintain some of that special presence. Unfortunately, it's not going to do much for them as they go down without fully building up their ink armor. That's going to be a 3-down situation on the side of Brainstorm, which is going to give Clam Cup staff the ability to try and push forward here. They're going to first use their 10 missiles to get some map control and to find the remaining enemies of Brainstorm, and they have a lot of plans at their disposal here, so they're going to pull out the old tried and true strategy. The bubbles are going to come out, followed by the barrier pop, and that's going to allow some members of their team to get forward here. 3v3 situation. They lose an additional member, though, so a couple of clams, just one, in fact, are going to be able to go in, and there's another few that will give them the lead to 68, but I think that will likely be the end of the push despite the late pick there on the bridge.
Will be the end of the push there, as just a few more clams are able to follow in, but again, very few actually overall able to find their way into the basket. There will still be plenty of time more for things to come together here for the side of Brainstorm, as now we see one go down. They're trying to look to try to find where their opponents are. It's a 2-down situation for them. Now make it a 3-down situation. There's this Tri-Slosher pushing forward, able to find the power play in the basket, now allowing for the follow-up from the rest of the team to come on through, and here's that Rapid Blaster pumping in work, not allowing these members of Clam Cup staff to feel safe in position. That's exactly what you want to see this weapon do. The burst bombs trying to come out here to try to take some of these members back, but it's just not going to be enough. That push will be stopped to the 53-point mark, and now we're already starting to see what the other side of the map is going to look like for Clam Cup staff, as they're already getting into position with the power flame at the red.
Well, that was the ink armor weapons excelling, but I don't necessarily think it was just the ink armors that really did work for them. I think the Tri-Slosher did a great job of using the burst bombs to their advantage, helping to keep the paint on the map, and the Rapid Blaster sort of expending that range and sort of poking at the enemy while the Tri-Slosher was doing a lot of the close-in work. We now see Himajin going in with the bubbles. It's going to not lead to a kill, but it will lead to a bit of safety for them, as unfortunately that's going to still take them out. 2v2 situation now as the members of Brainstorm are trying to defend their base and pick up that pity clam. They now push forward here, as unfortunately for them, that is going to be the lead for Clam Cup staff with 2 minutes left to go. So it's still a back and forth swingy environment, and even with that push happening, 28 regular clams rest with Brainstorm, giving them an opportunity to excel if they can find some picks. Unfortunately, trades may not exactly benefit them. The only positive here that they may be able to take away from it just went down, as that was the K52 with the Booyah at the ready, not being able to use it.
But that said, they can breathe. They've still got 90 seconds here left to go. Plenty of time to build up enough clams once more. They need 2 whole power clams in effect in order to take the lead here. That is that Brainstorm does. So they'll be looking to try to do that. Watch that number for the 20 clam mark. Whenever they can try to hit that is when they'll probably try to move on forward here. They're going to take their time to make sure that they've got the ability to do just that. Booyah Bomb coming in is going to be able to catch one member off guard. Now they're going to start collapsing around this, but they don't really have enough clams to their name right now. We're already starting to see the push coming forward. Would they be able to keep this up for long enough? That power clam is just barely able to be picked up. They're looking to try to throw this one in, but no, it's not not going to go in time. It's going to get snipped out here. Pity Clam on the backside, able to get jumped on in, and that is going to be the lead. There we go. They're going to go 3 down for it. And with 40 seconds left to go, there's still plenty of time for a counter push to be made by Clam Cup staff. And indeed, they're already rushing for their opponent's barrier. Another 2 power clams almost at the ready here. And now someone else coming up to the side. They might be looking for the knockout here almost immediately as the bubbles are going to get popped by Imogen. It's just one more clam in the basket, and that will be the knockout as the complete enemy team goes down. It's Clam Cup staff able to respond in game 2.
That is what you call risking it for the biscuit. And the risk initially pays off, right? They get the push, they get the lead, they get a decent amount of map control, so everything's looking pretty good there. But unfortunately, there was still a pretty well-defined path for them to maneuver around through. So they were able to get right through that center area, or get right through the bridge without having to do much inking. And as you mentioned, they had quite a good bit of clams themselves. So all they needed to do is wait for the members of Brainstorm to overcommit there and allow them to push forward to get some kills. We saw that nice double there using the bubbles to their advantage, and that is going to allow Hemogene and the rest of Clam Cup staff to have this match tied at 1 in this best of 5 series.
And that's one of the things we've seen from Clam Cup staff is their ability to make the decisive play, push on forward when it matters most, and just use what they do already have laid out, especially in terms of that map coverage, to their advantage in order to translate it into a very quick push, especially when it's needed most towards the end of that game. So now Brainstorm is going to be picking their final, they've still got 2 more technically because it's 1-1. We're not 2-0. We're in 1-1 territory. These teams are now tied, have to play an effective best of 3 to decide who is going to come out on top. But if you're Brainstorm, you're still going to want to take your time here. You don't want your counter pick to go to waste, especially in a best of 5 where there's a little less room for error. So we'll have to see what that is coming in. We have to imagine you don't want Nagora on that Rapid Blaster.
I think it's tough. I think, if I remember correctly, in their semifinal match versus Pig, they counterpicked to the Reef, and that's the map that they just lost on. So in lieu of that, they will be taking a Mako Mart as their counterpick. So again, you get some of the nice things about the Reef, where you have some walls and some obstacles that you can use to shark around on. It's relatively straightforward in terms of not being such a wide map, but you are making each team sort of run a marathon rather than a sprint. I think the Reef is much more of a sprint style map. You can get to the opposing basket a lot easier. Mako Mart, not the most difficult map to maneuver around on, but there are definitely more avenues that can be held down with something like a splash wall, or can be blocked off with something like a booyah bomb. So those K-52s again, and the bubbles from the foil squeezers, they play just as important a role on a map like Mako Mart for this game 3.
Yeah, they absolutely will. And the bubbles have been playing a strong role no matter what map we go to. I mean, the bubbles are just such a strong weapon. You're able to throw that out. It's like a 3 free tent umbrella shields that cover you from all angles, and you don't have to worry as much about a random bomb getting thrown in and, you go down, right? Having these bubbles at your disposal is absolutely massive. And then the flexibility to be able to pop them if you're trying to go on the offensive, trying to call someone on your opposing side out, as opposed to just providing that barrier for those extra jumps to come on in for some extra points on the board. So much versatility with that special weapon. It'll certainly be something to watch out for in the pit underneath the barrier on both sides of the map here. But here we are, game 3 now of our final set. Clam World Cup Season 8. Looks like Nagora's sticking to this Rapid Blaster here, as well as Roto for Brainstorm. They're sticking tried and true to the weapons they know best.
Yeah, not seeing a lot of changes. In fact, I think both K-shots are running exactly the same main abilities in exactly the same spots. So there's definitely a well-defined weapon meta and even clothing meta for these teams as we get into game number 3. Honoka on the Tri-Slosher pushed all the way back. You'll notice too, Honoka using a build that relies much more around the burst bomb than it does around sharking around and trying to be sneaky and get kills with the main weapon. So look for that throughout the rest of this game, not only to be able to get around, but also to build up that ink run.
going to be looking to do just that. Having those two ink armors at your disposal, allowing your teammates on that 52, on that K-shot to step forward, exactly what we've been talking about so far when everything comes together. But it's not going to happen this time around. They go 3 down, and it'll allow for the first push to come in from Clam Cup staff, as they're already getting this down to the 42-point mark. Melon is stuck behind the blocks here, cannot quite seem to make a play on this barrier. That's one of the other things we've seen so often, is that these players are going around the backside, trying to, there's a very easy access up there. You are not safe when you're standing up top, trying to shoot down on your opponents who are throwing in clams. So well done there. Props. Getting it down to the 36-point mark. We'll see what more, though, can come of this. We'll see what the response might be from Brainstorm.
Ryusei Boy and Melon trying to push together here as the 10 misses are almost built up here. Ryusei Boy likely going to use them to scout, as the members of Brainstorm had 21 clams at their disposal. They're going to lose a few of them, but they will gain an ink armor in the process. They're going to be a man down, however, as their K-52 is no longer with them in this push, and they're going to have to potentially contend with the bubbles, which are coming out now on the side of Clam Cup staff. They're going to use this momentum and this ability to hold on to mid as best they can. Not really the best time for a push, as we see both the 10 missiles come out and a kill there onto IU as well, but it is going to be a tough job here for them to get around what is quite a well-defined map for Brainstorm here. Clam Club staff not really having much to do. They are just sort of hopping and jumping their way around while building up their special. And again, despite that, a lot of neutral game here, even though there's such a big early push that came out from Clam Cup staff.
You'll notice, even though Clam Cup staff technically had the squid advantage on the map, they didn't push forward. They're content just keeping control of mid, especially with the fact that they have such a sizable lead halfway through this game. They don't want to overstep their bounds and get caught off and jumped on by 2 other members, allowing for a squid advantage the other direction. Very conservative play right now coming out from this squad. And now with 2 minutes left to go, it looks like they might be trying to step forward and get something happening here. IU gonna go down here and looking to try to find a pick, and it's not going to allow for an opportunity for these clams to fall in, as we see this power clam sitting behind, lurking, waiting for its opportunity to strike. Now the 10 missiles trying to scan the crowd, but it's 2 down, both sides of the map. Things are going to continue playing neutral for the time being, and it'll just be another thing like we saw in the Walleye Warehouse game earlier, where these teams are going to have to go back and forth at the very end.
Yeah, Kudo unabashedly using the 10 missiles there, basically right in the middle of the map. Some players would like to go back and sort of get as many people in their reticle as they can, but they don't feel the need to, as long as they get it onto somebody and keep moving. The fast-paced play is what they aim for. Speaking of 10 missiles, those are going to be coming out on the side of Brainstorm instead. However, it looks like Brainstorm has built up quite a good amount of clams where they were lacking before as we get close to the minute mark. The Bubble Blower and the Ink Armor, however, coming out now from the Clam Cup staff, really trying to make the best use of their time. However, they are going to lose their K-52 and their Foil Squeezer on top of that. So now not only have they expended many of their specials, but they're staring 23 clams in the face on the side of Brainstorm, and that's going to allow for the first barricade break of their game.
And now the Tri-Slosh are able to come up with one. Will they be able to find enough for the clams? They will have enough clams to take this lead. It's a 3-down situation, though, and so they're only going to have a safety margin of 4. That is still effectively 2 power clams, though, as that's 36 points that their opponents are going to have to work through. They're going to have to build up clams, and they're already a decent ways of the way there with 14 clams to their name. 23 seconds here left to go, and we'll have to see how they decide to approach as these 10 missiles are starting to come out. You see these members right now of Brainstorm very far back. The barrier is going to be broken here. Do they have enough clams? One of the players is going to go down. The bubbles are not going to come out in time, and it looks like Clam Cup staff is going to get taken out just in time. Able to take care of business is Brainstorm, taking game 2 and getting themselves to tournament point.
Tenuous lead at best, but it ends up working out in their favor. Just a little amount of time left on the clock, and that is going to play to their favor as we see the K-52 Melon going with an 11 KA, followed by 2 10 KAs from both of their armor representatives. And again, showing how evenly split the talents on these teams are. So a really strong performance on what looked like it could be a knockout at one point there by Clam Cup staff. However, Brainstorm holding down the line and are able to use their counter pick to their advantage. So smart play there. And now the onus goes back to Clam Cup staff, trying to have to bring this one to a game 5 if they want a shot at tournament victory. Brainstorm would like to do just the opposite, take their counter pick and just go immediately to a tournament win. And it sounds like both of these teams have very different ideas about the ways that they want to play, of course, with the 2 ink armors versus the 1, but otherwise their strategies seem to be pretty similar in terms of just get the bubbles up, use the 10 missiles to find where the enemy teams are and maybe use it to get some additional map coverage, and then find the right opening to push forward. And as we've seen, both teams are very cautious about when to do that, because the consequences if they overextend are certainly dire.
They absolutely are. You do not want to get yourself in a situation where you get caught out, especially when that was entirely in your control, and that could potentially snowball very quickly into your opponents getting a push of their own. But as we mentioned, of course, Brainstorm now sitting at tournament point. They've got 2 of their members that have won this tournament twice, and they are looking to try to find their 3rd Clam World Cup. The counterpick from Clam Cup staff, New Albacore Hotel, coming in this time around. Perhaps we'll see a few mix-ups on this more flat map, this more wide open area. And indeed, we see a Jet Squelcher and double Kensa 52 on the other side of the map.
Yeah, big changes for these teams, at least. These are big changes. We see the Tri-Slosher retain its place on the team, so that's going to be one staying grace. One team deciding to go away from the K-Shot. That's going to be Clam Cup staff. And Brainstorm sticking with it. Other than that, Melon going to be back on the CJS. That's going to give them that Stingray. And we have Honoka, who's already built up an armor as they've gotten 2 picks down on the side of Clam Cup staff. So Brainstorm not only with an opening, but with armor to boot, and they are spreading themselves out. They can basically form a straight line across the width of the map from where they're being located, which certainly makes it difficult to target and take down each of these members, because you have to be very careful about where they're coming from, and that's going to result in the first barricade block.
Another 3-down situation, though, and there are enough members to continue being pesky for Brainstorm underneath their opponent's barrier. They're getting in a few more extra clams are already down to this 50-point mark, now getting in just a few more. Melon's going to get taken out in the process, and I believe that was their last member forward. Down to 44 to open things off, but it looks like they're not quite done. Able to find a trade here to try to open things back up, but it's just not going to be enough, and we're starting to see this pink squad push a little bit forward, but they have to be careful that they're not getting too far spread out, that they're not getting too far individualized here as they continue looking for clams and gathering them up on this such widespread map.
Honoka was basically serving as the bodyguard for Melon there. You could see them both on that raised part of the map where the CJS likes to set up, but it eventually doesn't work out in their favor as we see the standard combination of the bubbles and the power clam come out, which is going to lead to the first push of the game for Clam Cup staff. They're going to be able to get 1 clam in additionally to that, but they're going to lose 2, now 3 of their members. So what ends up being an early strong push may have been started just a tad too early. They have 1 clam at their disposal that is being held onto by Nigora on the backline, their only surviving member. And of course, you want that member not to overextend, but you also want the pushes to be substantial. And just getting 1 additional clam in besides the power clam, not going to be too substantial as they are yet again 3 down.
Another 3-down situation. Things can be very dangerous very quickly here as Brainstorm starting to build up even more presence. They're just going to have enough clams to end the game there. That's the tournament, folks. In the blink of an eye, Brainstorm has all of the clams at their disposal in order to take care of business, and they are going to go on to be your Season 8 Clam World Cup champions.
I was expecting the first 3-down situation. I was not expecting the second one. That is showing just how strong and well put together this Brainstorm team is, able to take the tournament 3-1 grand finals. Very strong performance on New Albacore Hotel, showing that even when faced with a counter-picked map, they can do themselves justice. What a strong performance. You have to give a shout out to all these players. Of course, Honoka on the Tri-Slosher, and Melon playing multiple roles throughout the tournament. Roto also having a strong performance on what ended up being a popular choice in that Rapid Blaster Pro Deco. And all things considered, Brainstorm showing why they were able to 3-1 not just Pig in the semifinals, but also Clam Cup staff. So congratulations to them. Very, very strong performance. And I hope to see their members, as we likely will see shakeups, of course, in the teams, but their members again competing yet again next month.
Yeah, of course. Always going to be an interesting time, especially when you get these players out, especially such storied players that we've seen in that set. But, overall here, just for the side of Brainstorm. And the interesting thing I want to note on kind of that main composition they were going back to, right? K-Shot, Kensa 52, Rapid, Tri-Slosher. Interestingly, they don't have like a traditional support coming out of that. If anyone's playing the supportive role, it's probably mostly that K-Shot might be playing a little bit more back, playing for missiles, playing for painting their teammates' feet overall. And then your armor players, if you have two armors to counterbalance instead of just like one player constantly charging for armor, they instead have two armors. They almost always are going to be able to have that up, and then it's just a matter of coordinating that to allow for someone, a prolific slayer such as Melon, to step forward, find even more opportunities and more picks as you're playing for just that additional 2 steps of survivability. In addition to that Booyah Bomb splash wall, the Kensa 52, now you've got 2 armors to work with as well. All about enabling that player in kind of a unique way, as opposed to just like the one, junior or the one NZAP that's continuing to paint the entire map. So interesting stuff there to kind of explore why exactly that composition works in the way it does. And we'll have to see if other teams decide to kind of step away or step back in the dying breaths of the Splatoon 2 meta.
Yeah, I think to sort of sum up what you're saying is rigidity and how liquid your team wants to be in terms of adapting to the meta, or how rigid you feel about whatever weapon that you main or prefer to use and what role that it fills. Can you be adaptable with that weapon? If you main one single weapon and it traditionally carves out one purpose, the other team is likely going to know that and will be looking for you to be fulfilling that role. But if your team is set up in a way where you can perform well in an unexpected manner, that gives you an edge in terms of having a surprise factor. So that, I think, is part of why they did the double armor comp. Of course, lots of teams ran Rapid Blaster Pro Deco, as I've mentioned, and that allows you for great chip damage, and it allows you to use some of the unequal surfaces to your advantage because of that range. But the Tri-Slosher is an not unpopular, but a less popular choice for armor than the Rapid Blaster Pro Deco, the Junior, or the NZAP, for the reason of it's just not really as efficient, especially for the rate of inking that it can do, and then for the Rapid Blaster, the range that it has. So you're kind of in that awkward middle ground, but having that and being able to sort of layer that on top of one of the better sub weapons, and of course the quickest detonating, or one of the quickest detonating in the game with that burst bomb, which you saw they really specced into with multiple mains of Inksaver sub and also sub power up. So that is a big advantage for them to be able to have basically 2 weapons in one, on top of the ink armor, that allows for their other players like Ryusei Boy, Roto Melon, to use that on top of the bubbles to really make a push count and up their survivability.
Yeah, and it's worth noting, any time that you're looking at some of these compositions and trying to see, okay, why are they working the way they're working? It's worth asking yourself the actual question of why are they working, right? Not just, oh, okay, so I don't need to pick an NZAP or a Junior anymore, right? Why are these things working the way they are? It is because when you're looking at things like this Tri-Slosher that has that burst bomb, it's a little bit of extra range. It's not like, a bunch of extra range, but it's sufficient enough. And with that Rapid Blaster to boot, there's enough range where they're able to combat most of the things they play up against, as opposed to just like a quad shooter composition or something of that nature, right? So really trying to hone in and identify where the strengths and weaknesses of these kinds of compositions are and what kinds of things they're doing differently, but how they're doing them. And in fact, oftentimes to accomplish a very similar goal overall is, I think, really important to consider when you're looking at, oh, what did these teams play, right? It's not just always about what literally the players are picking, but it's most often about how the players are playing the weapons, how they work together in the team setting, and not just, oh, so I've got 3 Slayers in a backline.
Well, and as Splatoon 3 is on the horizon, we're getting into unexplored territory with the new weapons and kits. We're going to have, specials that we're gonna be feeling out how powerful they are. In what situations do they work or do they not work? New sub weapons too that we're going to have to, also sort of measure against the others that are available and say, is the main weapon worth it if it has the sub, or is this sub so good that the main weapon being slightly below average is forgivable? And those are some of the things you're going to have to play on top of how impactful specials are in the game. We'll just look at what we have now. I mean, 10 Missiles has taken a huge, chart with upwards trend, for lack of a better phrase, in recent months, as has the K52. And they work for multiple reasons because the entirety of their kit seems to be strong. And I think it will, take not too long for players to really find that in Splatoon 3, which will be very exciting.
So we've been stalling for a little while because I believe we're going to get a little bit of a glimpse into the interview here. So we'll bring on Tic Tac, who's been one of the main coordinators to try to make these sorts of events happen. Tic Tac, how are you doing? It's evening over there for you.
Hello.
Hopefully not
Good
too
evening.
late.
It's about midnight right now. But yeah, the JP interview is about to start, and I'm here to translate. Hopefully things will go smoothly. But apparently this Honoka, the player on this team, they won last time too. So this is their 2nd time winning in a row, and this is their 3rd time winning a Clan Cup tournament. So they are definitely Clam's champions. And yeah, they are introducing their team right now. Melon, Rado, and Ryusei Boy. I think a lot of these names are familiar, especially Melon, who's just a cracked frontline. But yeah, they are just chit-chattering. They haven't gone to the questions yet, but hopefully they will soon. Okay, so last time the team that they won with, they had Odin X on their team instead of Melon. So 3 of their members are the same as the winners of last time. But they just swapped out Odin X for Melon. And they asked how they adapted to their change in team comp, because they did sub out a backline for a frontline player. And apparently they didn't practice at all for this tournament.
起きたんだね。寝てたんだね。寝てた。なんですけど、まあ試合をしながら、まあこうした方がいいのかなとか話し合ったりとか。
And then as they were playing on, they would like give each other suggestions about how they should approach a game with their comp. But apparently it just seems like Melon was just so good that they just ended up winning. So certainly that is nice.
演奏の全体の連携が非常に良かったですよね。そうでしたね。練習なしとは思えないぐらいの、まあ、即席ではないですけど、残り3名が多分一緒のチームでやってるので。
ありがとうございます。
はい。
すごい綺麗でしたね。さあ、もうアサリの女王の名を欲しいがままにしているほのか選手ですが、まあ普段からやっぱりガチャ。
And the next question is, do you play clams the most? Because you do win a lot of these clam tournaments.
で8月からはちょっとできなくなるかなっていう感じなんですけど。
And apparently they haven't been as active when playing other game modes other than clams, but they do make sure that they do get in a lot of clam practice here and there to this day.
はい。
結構タイミングがいいというかね、いろいろ持っておられますね、ほのか選手ね。さあ、まあこの大会、まあご存知だと思うんですが、海外チーム。
And then they are going to go to our foreigner question, or question from us, and our question this time was, the question we asked them was, if I can
Question
find
was,
it.
how does your team decide what map to counterpick, and how much did it contribute to your success today?
Thank you very much.
ザトウカって最後のステージ時になったんですけど、大トロかザトウカで、で理由とかあんまり話さなくて、で私が大トロだと必戦がきついので、それで
And apparently when they counterpick, they didn't really discuss much
どうなんだろう。
about
ザトウ
which maps would be better for their comps and whatever. Apparently they just would individually say, I don't like this map, my weapon isn't good on this map, so they just decided.
まあでも結果的に
So
相手側のカウンター
apparently
戦線が
Honoka
ですから
plays Tri-Slosher, and for one of the maps, she just did not want to play a Tri-Slosh, and because it would be bad, they just decided, okay, let's just go Makomart. So not a lot of thought was put in like overall, but individual players would just talk about what maps they're comfortable and not comfortable with.
最もほのか選手が重要だなと思うアサリのポイントって何ですか？
And the next question is tips for Clam Blitz.
なんかチームとしてや
So
る
in the setting of a competitive setting where you're playing with your team and not solo queue, what are some tips for Clam Blitz?
あ
例えばまあキルが大事だとかそういう感じの結構ざっくりとかでもいいんですけど、なんか例えばねアサリを集めることが大事だとか、まあ、結構一番意識してることって何ですか？
攻めの時に、
はい。
So when you push in Clam Blitz, instead of rushing forward, their tip is to slowly push
そ
up
の理由については
and carefully push up with your team.
からですか？それとも相手にラインの圧をかけるからとかそういったまあなんか
どっちもですね。
どっちもですか？なるほどなるほど。
So you want to basically gain more turf carefully. That way you can also collect more clams as your team as a whole. And I'm assuming that this is so that your push, when it does happen, you have a lot of clams to push in all at once. Because a lot of these games I did end instantly just because a team just had a lot of clams saved up.
それ以外にでもポイントが一番聞きたいんで、まあそれとプラス言うならじゃあ攻めの方と守りの方は何か？
And then tips for this time, it's defense.
私守り苦手なんですけど、
はい。
まずは
And of course, the first step is to not die. Very, very smart, if you ask me.
で
And then also start with easy kills is apparently what they said. And right now, they're asking what exactly defines as an easy kill.
味方がダメージを与えてくれてて、空棒を投げたら倒せるような敵をまず
So like maybe a burst bomb user on your team can throw a burst bomb on somebody to get him weak before you push forward is an instance of an easy kill. And I'd also assume just like punishing players that overextend.
はい、団長さんありがとうございました。そうですね。失礼しました。
どうですか？しっかり。
粒がね、すごい入ったわけですが、まあ、シーズン7、シーズン8と、まあ、前回今回と優勝していただいたほのか選手なんですが、シーズン9だったら参加してもらえますかね？
And the next question is, you won season 7, you won season 8. Will you play in season 9? And Honoka said that she does have tests coming up. But depending on that, she may or may not play.
今年あれですか？試験ですか？試験というか。
So what we can take from this is stay in school, kids, study hard.
じゃあ来年の4月ぐらいにアサリの女王が王冠持って帰ってくるわけですね。我々の。
And she might take a break until April next year. just due to how exams in Japan are very important.
ディフェンスもしっかり簡単な問題から解いていくみたいな。
いや、そういうことですね。受験にもつながってくるんで、勝ち当たりに。
やっぱり分かる問題から解いていく時間なくなりますか。
そうですね。お母さんにも言っといてください。これは勝ち当たりはお受験にも通用するっていう。
And they're tying into the fact how the tip in Clamblitz of start off with the easy kills first also applies to test taking tips of you start off with the easy questions first. So, you know, competitive Splatoon helps you in school, you know? When your parents tell you to get off solo queue, make sure they know. Just say, hey, it's helping me study. And I believe that is the end of the interview. Thank you, thank you. Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Chick Check, for your on-the-fly translations. And of course, that was Honoka in for Brainstorm, who are your Season 8 Clam World Cup victors. Props to everyone, of course, who has come together to put this event on. You might imagine that coordinating a English broadcast of a Japanese tournament does take a few extra steps. So, of course, Tic Tac, thanks for inviting us on and making this sort of a thing happen. Redo is in charge of the event overall. So, of course, shout outs there. And, of course, to the rest of the staff team for putting this event on and allowing us to take a look at things. Inkfair has been on production today for IPL. And of course, all the hands on IPL that help out with these sorts of things, from graphics, social media, whole 9 yards. Appreciate everyone's support to come together for this kind of event, and looking forward to seeing even more high-level Splatoon action. Zach, any other closing thoughts on the day?
Pleasure as always to cast with you, sir, and always a pleasure to be looking at this high-level gameplay. Of course, thank you myself to IPL, Splatoon, and to the members who put this on, both on the Japanese side and the Western side. It means a lot, and it's a great way to get involvement between the Japanese scene and the Western scene, which I hope we can only see more of when Splatoon 3 drops on September 9th.
Absolutely true. Everyone's looking forward to that. It's only like 5 weeks away or something like that. Kind of crazy to think about. But of course, that's going to do it for us here today. Thank you all so much for tuning in this morning. Tell your friends, those of them that are still sleeping, hey, if you found something entertaining, informative, maybe to have them take a look at the VOD afterwards. It'll be up on the Twitch channel for a little while to come. But as I said, that'll be it for the stream from us today. More IPL events to come. We're kicking off a new month. That means Low Ink is back. That means SOS is back and more. So don't go anywhere. IPL has you covered for plenty more events. Follow them on Twitter at IPL Splatoon. But again, folks, that'll do it from us. Signing off for the day. I've been K-Bot, joined by Shiny Hunter Zach. Take care, everyone. Stay fresh. And we hope you have a good rest of your day.